Will the Committee on Budget please come to order? It's 10:07 a.m. I'd like to introduce Committee Vice Chair Nishimoto, Councilmember Cordero, Councilmember Wire, and Committee Member Kia Aina, who's participating remotely by video conference. Councilmember Kia Aina, in accordance with Section 92-3.7 Hawaii Revised Statutes, please identify each person who's with you at your location.
I'm by myself, thank you.
Okay, and I understand that at about 11:50 a.m. you'll be logging off for another activity, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so
that is correct.
So we'll make a note of that for later, and please let us know when you are ready to actually leave.
I will, thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to welcome Council Members Tolba, Okimoto, and Tupola, who are also joining us here today. Pursuant to Section 92-3.7 Hawaii Revised Statutes, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda in two ways, remotely and in person in the council chamber. Remote and in-person oral testimony will be allowed when the agenda item is taken up. As both English and Hawaiian are official languages of the state of Hawaii pursuant to Article 15, Section 4 of the Hawaii State Constitution and Section 1-31 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, members of the public may testify in either language. For oral testimonies offered in Olelo, Hawaii, additional time as may be necessary will be allowed for the testifier to provide an English translation of their testimony. Before testifying, each person shall state their name. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. All persons who have registered to testify remotely by video conference will be called upon first. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. I'll then give persons who have not registered an opportunity to offer testimony. Please utilize the raise hand feature in Zoom to be called upon. For those of us on telephone only, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. I'll identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. When your phone number is called, please press *6 to unmute yourself when prompted. Some friendly reminders and tips. Please video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you're watching on Olelo, please mute your television at the time you're called to testify. And when the timer on screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. Once all the remote testifiers have testified, I'll proceed to in-person testimony in the council chamber. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. HRS Section 92-3.7 requires all votes in remote meetings to be conducted by a roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, I'll first call for objections, and if there are any, I'll call for a roll call vote. For those council members participating from outside the council chamber, in accordance with Section 92-3.7 HRS, the meeting will automatically recess if we lose audiovisual contact with you and cannot reconvene until we reestablish contact. Therefore, please announce beforehand if you'll be voluntarily signing out of the meeting. But we do know that Councilmember Kia Aina will be logging off at about 11:50 a.m. Hawaii time. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described in the posted agenda. And as a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones. Before we begin, I understand we have 2 announcements. We'll start with Floor Leader Cordero.
Thank you very much, Chair Dos Santos Tam. First off, I just want to wish everyone all the moms, belated Happy Mother's Day. We all come from a mother or a woman, so I just really want to honor you all. And I also want to honor the moms that we have my colleagues that are moms. We have Councilmember Val Okimoto of District 8, as well as Councilmember Andrea Tupola of District 1. I do want to note especially that our own colleague, Councilmember Tupola, was recognized just a few weeks ago. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to announce it. I know that you're cringing over there, but I'm not going to look at you. Okay, so as 2025 Mother of the Year, it's a national recognition award, and each state gets to be have their own Mother of the Year that's recognized. And Councilmember Tupola is Hawaii's 2025 Mother of the Year. So if you would join me in congratulating our Councilmember Tupola.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Cordero. Vice Chair Wire.
Thank you, Chair. I also just wanted to ask us to welcome intern with our office, Luca Cunaberti, student in Asia Pacific International School, and it's his first day today, so just wanted to welcome him.
Welcome, Luca. Well, you picked a doozy of a day. We have a number of things on the agenda, and we'll dive in. We have first Bill 22 of 2025, approving the executive operating budget and program for the fiscal year July 1st, 2025 to June 30th of 2026. Before we begin, it may be helpful for us to do testimony up front from the public. I understand we have 3 registered testifiers, and we'll go in order of the registered testifiers. First, we have Frank Doyle, if he's here, then Rick Agid, and then Natalie Iwasa. Are any of them here?
Chair, they're all not logged on.
Okay, very well. Is there anyone standing by to testify? I see we have a hand up. Angela Melody Young, please proceed.
This is Angela Melody Young, and I'm testifying on behalf of CARES, where we have.
Oh, you're on mute. You can unmute yourself. There we go.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. So Angela Melody Young testifying on behalf of CARES. I think this is a good time to mention this as a community advocate. So for the operating budget, I think this could consider, although I have not heard in the new entertainment committee at the county, although there's been a lot of people who are asking about this, and the state finance committee that mentioned that if the city could try to contribute to the Hawaii film tax credit to help with middle class families that otherwise would have to go on quest integration because of a lack of provisions for the filmmakers industry, for producers and for extras, for people who do acting. And I think this is a really good time to mention it because there's also the entertainment committee.
Yeah, thank you, Angela. If you could wrap up.
Yes, and just to wrap up, the Hawaiian Homelands had the Prince Kukio Studio. They have an idea to help with economic development for film credits for the Hawaiians, for Hawaiian film productions. So, yep, just thought I would mention this in the operating budget. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for supporting our bus system. All right, members, any questions? Okay, hearing none. Clerks, is there anyone else standing by either in person or remotely to testify on Bill 22?
Chair, there are none.
Okay. There being none, members, we are going to dive in. I recognize that you all just got the packet in front of you, and we'll be going through that page by page. Before we begin, I wanted to just, for the public's edification, this is Council Communication 143, and I want to ground us by first reminding everyone what we did in the CD1. In the CD1, one of the principal things that we did was removing funding, and in some cases, position counts from positions that have been vacant for more than 3 years. Between the CD1 and the CD2 version today, we found out that many of the departments had, in fact, been stepping up their hiring and recruiting. And so the departments deserve plaudits for that. I think that's a goal that we all support. And when we get around to next year, I hope that there won't be any of these 3-year plus vacancies. And to the extent that they need more support from us in order to do that, I'm sure we would all be happy to do that. We also heard that the departments needed these positions because it was critical for them to be able to deliver services to the community. And so I'm gonna put a pin into that. The department's needing these positions, and I'm gonna come back to it in a moment. What we also did in the CD1, and now coming into the CD2, is we added a number of priority projects for members for their individual communities. And in the CD2, there have been some changes to those because the administration is either already doing them or has committed to doing them within their existing budget. And so if your project is not in the CD2, this is because the departments have assured us that they're happening or will happen. And so please follow up with them. In the CD2, though, I will note that the council members, and in fact, I think everybody here added in some priority projects, and we've gotten to a place where they reflect most, but not all, of what we collectively as a council have wanted. And so the question before us as we head into the CD2 and then into the FD1 on June 4th is whether these projects will actually be carried out. We've added them into the budget, and it's our hope that they'll be carried out. And this is where I'm going to circle back to the comment that I made before, which is we heard that the departments needed the positions that we restored because it was critical for them to deliver services to the community. And so in adding projects from the council, it's our turn to say these are projects that are important to us, and they're important and critical on behalf of our communities. And so we want to make sure that these projects get implemented, as I look at Andy Kawano over there. So through the proviso language, we found some ways to articulate those priorities and to hold the administration accountable for the progress that they will be making on our various projects. We came up with some alternative ways to track that, and so we're going to keep an eye on it. Between the time that we approve this budget and the time that we return next year, we want to make sure that these projects are moving forward, and if they're not, there's going to be some data and some reports to back that up. Furthermore, I think on the CD2, I know that we have the sewer fee discussion that's coming in about 2 weeks' time, and so what we've been able to do with this draft, and we'll get there when we dive into the worksheet, is specify that there's $14 million that we've identified within the sewer fund to defray the costs of whatever increases are coming within the confines of the sewer fund. This is probably not an important distinction for the public, but it's an important distinction for us for budget and legal purposes. And so in this draft, we've specified $14 million of sewer funds that hopefully can go to defraying the costs of these upcoming increases. And I know that we're going to continue the discussion on Bill 60. And so before we dive in, I just want to again reiterate that in the CD2, what we're trying to do is focus on strengthening public health and safety. And so the funding that we're proposing is directed towards new facilities, enhancing first responder resources, and improving our parks for safer recreational use. And so as we dive in here, Councilmember Tupola, I know how important it is for you to have ambulance service out on the west side. And so we've been adding in funding for a new ambulatory unit out in Ko'olina. Councilmember Wire, same thing out in Ko'olaupoka. I know that's very important for your community. Councilmember Tolba, the Asing Community Park. I was there a couple weeks ago, and I know how much the community has wanted a safe place for the kids to get on their bikes that are not doing things in Fort Weaver Road and can go to Asing Park instead. Councilmember Ki'aina, I know the federal funding issue is one that's really important to you. And so we're adding in $750,000 to support more advocacy on federal funding, as well as continuing the funding for the actual removal of the haiku stairs. And I know that's been an important one for your community. Councilmember Cordero, $2 million for Ke'ehi Beach Park. We were all there, well, 3 of us were there for the ambulance blessing. And I know that the improvements there are important for everybody who recreates in that area. Councilmember Nishimoto, the Makiki District Park, I know how many people in the community love the community garden there and love just using that park. And for Councilmember Okimoto, I know that you've been talking with your former colleagues in the state side about Palisades and the fact that they only have one access road, and so hopefully we can use this to start a conversation about creating an alternative access, given how important disaster response is. And so with that, let's, there is one phone number from a person who is online ending in 077. They had their hand up, but it wasn't on the screen. So are they still on? Okay, if we can take them, because I didn't see them on the first go around. Phone number ending in 077. Please proceed. Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed.
Hi. I am so sorry. I couldn't find out the Zoom thing. I'm wanting to speak on an amendment on the capital budget. I didn't know my hand was up, so I'm more than happy to wait until then.
Okay, we'll have the capital budget next. That's Bill 23. Okay, so members, we will dive into the different areas. I see we have a number of the department heads. When we get to your pages, please feel free to flag me down or flag one of the council members down, and we'll make sure that we're able to ask questions about your programs within the budget worksheets. And so we're going to start with page 1. There are 73 pages here. There's actually only 60 pages of worksheet, and then the rest is proviso. So we'll start with page 1 for the mayor's office and managing director, city management. Anything on page 1? Councilmember Tupola.
Yeah, quickly. Thank you, Chair, for your very thorough explanation and support of all of our districts. Quickly on the 4 positions for grants, for federal grants team to 2. Previously, if you could just briefly tell me, were there any and we're getting all of a sudden 2, or were there none?
So my understanding is that we have a contractor who the city contracts with to do federal advocacy, but we currently do not have this type of position. We Councilmember Kiana originally proposed 4 positions, and I thought that that was wise, but in discussing this with the managing director's office, they felt that they could only realistically hire 2 in the time allotted, and we could move forward based on that. But Councilmember Kiana.
Thank you, Chair. Councilmember Tupola, in the CD1 amendments, I actually had identified 8 specific agencies that I felt warranted a federal grants coordinator. And in discussing the issue with the chair as well as the managing director's office, we felt that it was more prudent to consolidate it and just quite frankly, realistically shoot for full-time positions that we know we could achieve. So although I halved the number from 8 to 4, I feel that the 2 positions are welcomed. And so I'm very, very happy right now with both the budget chair and managing director's leadership on this issue, because they will work in concert with all the agencies as well as the DC lobbyist. And I understand the Office of Economic Revitalization also has a contractor to help with federal grants. So we're slowly building institutional knowledge within the branch so that we could be competitive regardless of who is in the White House or who is in the US Congress. The funds will always be there and we need to be competitive.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember Kiana.
Thank you. So members, any other questions on page 1? Okay, page 2. Page 2 is city management, the data scientist, and youth commission. Okay, page 3. Page 3, this continues the federal discussion. This adds $500,000, or this specifies $500,000 more for the federal advocacy contractor. This also deals with some provisos for the Office of Economic Revitalization, including $150,000 for the development of an Oahu tourism strategic plan within the Office of Economic Revitalization.
Question, Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Tupola.
Yeah, so this one about the contractor, this is separate than the 2 positions. If you could clarify that. And then also my question was about the Oahu Tourism Strategic Plan is also to hire a contractor, or eventually it would be a person? Is this like a one-time thing for us to figure out how we integrate into that?
I'm going to defer to Councilmember Kiana.
Thank you again, Councilmember Tupola. With regard to the 500,000 that is specifically for a DC lobbyist. In the last budget, we had 250,000, and the administration is in the throes of an RFP as we speak. Again, this is all part of an overall strategy to increase our competitiveness. With regard to the tourism plan, as I may have mentioned, all counties have a strategic plan except for Honolulu. And so that was one of the reasons we put that in, because we, of course, are impacted more than any county proportionately. And so that is completely separate from the federal grants strategy. This is to bolster our capacity to be able to help the industry, because we do have a regenerative tourism manager at the Office of Economic Revitalization. And quite frankly, with a lot of the challenges going on with the Hawaii Tourism Authority, we need to be taking care of ourselves because we have so much to be concerned about. And we need to look after the city's interests in overall strategy on tourism, especially as it relates to regenerative and sustainable tourism.
Yeah, no, understood. And I thank you for being so mindful of that. I guess we watch it for this year and figure out if this is the best place. Of course, Office of Economic Revitalization has the right title, but I do think that Department of Enterprise Services is also, you know, they're a bulldog as far as marketing and pushing things out. So I think this is a good first step.
Councilmember, I did put it in the CD1, and in consultation with the chair, we felt that it is better to leave it in the Office of Economic Revitalization. We anticipate that they will also issue an RFP, so this will be contracted out for them to do the plan.
Understood. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, members. Any other questions on page 3? Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. I had a quick question on the OER position.
Yes.
I'll defer if it's to Director Asselby or to anyone else from BFS or Managing Director's office. And as Director Asselby comes up, understanding the amendments to the provisos, and this is specifically related to the community equity liaison positions, understanding these are general funded. With the deletion of the provisos, I just wanted to double check and ask maybe if you could confirm that under no circumstances with the scope of work that these folks are already doing change, or I'm assuming it hasn't changed to date from what it was previously, but just also going forward, understanding that these are general funds. Just wanted to confirm that there's no circumstance under which the scope of their work would change.
So the scope of the work as put forward by the council members remains the same. And we look forward to continuing to work with you as the challenges facing our immigrant community change due to what's happening on the federal level. And so while the work has developed over 4 months, we look forward to continuing to work with you to make sure that we're on target based on the needs that we're hearing from the community.
Okay, Mahalo, appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Councilmember Cordero.
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions on page 3? All right, page 4. Page 4, neighborhood commissions, and then DCS, 2 positions that were filled. Page 5, towing services and transit construction mitigation fund.
Oh, Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Cordero.
So for the towing services, are these new contracts? Or sorry, I have a question for
Yes.
DCS. CSD, excuse me.
Director Ashiro.
Hi, Director Hashiro. I was wondering if the towing services, the 1.8 million, currently, would the 1.8 million then be appropriated for a current contract or to issue out new contracts?
So we're actually still processing payments for the current contract. There is a work in progress right now. Current contract ends at the end of this calendar year, so we will be working on a new solicitation. Right now, as far as payments go, we have processed, and Councilmember Tupola, we will be sending you an update soon. Processing payments for all abandoned vehicle and derelict invoices. We're working on law enforcement also.
Thank you. And as one of the districts that does have some of the towing companies and towing company yards that the city has contracted with, I know that a lot of the issue is space, right? So with an investment like this, would our contracts then be able to carry out the need that we are hoping to invest in?
Yes, so you're correct. One of the biggest challenges is storage facility for the vehicles. And while there are many towing contractors, they don't all have sufficient towing space. So that is going to be part of the new solicitation. It is currently a requirement of the current contract. What we are considering, though, is restructuring the format of the contract so that it is multiple districts, geographic districts, but it will still require a storage requirement. One of the things that we're looking at is possibly if there are multiple districts that are bid out, would there be the ability to consolidate multiple districts into one storage area or a subleasing of a larger storage facility? So that is being looked at.
Okay, and since we do a budgeting on a yearly basis, is the 1.8 million sufficient? Is it too much? Is it necessary? Or is it more than necessary?
So what's being proposed next year is separation of the towing contracts where the police department will have funding for law enforcement tows, and CSD will retain abandoned vehicle derelict tows. What the additional increase is needed for is to cover payments this fiscal year to catch up on overdue payments. So it is something that is needed right now to take care of the backlog.
Okay, I understand. And hopefully we can catch up on that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Members, any other questions? I'll note that this is highway beautification funded rather than general funded. Okay, thank you. Page 6. Page 6 is various sort of technical changes. The $1 at the top of page 6 was a balancing issue, so we have to note a $1 change for balancing purposes. You'll also note on here a number of these changes are the same, right? Reducing and then adding same amounts. This is to change from sewer funded to general funded for positions outside of E&V that are sewer funded so that we can have more money in the sewer fund. This totals $3.9 million over the course of all of 60 pages. Okay, page 7. This is DIT and then the beginning of Corporation Council. This is $570,000 we're proposing instead of 3.07 million for critical hardware and software upgrades. This is the beginning of upgrading the city to the latest version of Microsoft. We can't do all of it, but at least we can set the stage for some of it. We'll talk more in a later budget bill. Any questions? Okay, page 8. Page 8 is the prosecuting attorney's office. This is to add funding for rent of offices and make corresponding changes off the salary side to delay hiring for a quarter, which is enough money to free up for their additional rent in Ali'i Place so they can have enough space for all the positions when they get them. Okay, page 9, DPP. This is restoring funding for salaries across several areas of DPP, starting with administration on page 9. Page 10 is site development, and then page 11 is land use permits. Questions on page 9, 10, or 11? Director Takeuchi Puna.
Aloha, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you. We appreciate the restoration of many of the positions and funding, but we would like to speak to some of the funding and positions that weren't restored and just make note of it for you. The first is $120,900 in general funding for salaries and one full-time equivalent for our GIS or Hollis program administrator. We also are asking restoration of $107,000 in general funding to replace 2 vehicles that are 23 and 21 years old for our administration. And we have asking restoration of $76,788 in general funding and 1 full-time position for our Planner 6 that serves as the Oahu Historic Preservation Commission Administrator. We have a TA for that position currently. And then for $153,576 in salaries general funded for 2 TOD Planner 6 positions. 1 has a conditional offer pending. And restoration of $86,376 in general funding for salaries and 1 full-time position in our code compliance branch. That's the branch that collects fines. And then lastly, restoration of $53,500 in general funding to support another aging vehicle in our customer services division. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to questions, I'll note that on page 12, we have the planner for position for the Oahu Historic Preservation Commission. But are there any questions for the Director of DPP, Councilmember Tupola, and then Vice Chair Wire? I'd also like to welcome Council Chair Waters to the chambers.
Aloha, Director. Thank you for that list of items. So as noted by Chair Dos Santos Tam, we have the planner position 4 and we have the planner position 3, and you're asking for a planner position 6. And I know the Oahu Historic Preservation Commission is very important to Councilmember Kiaina, but can you pull that together for us to understand the 3, or because we have 2 in there already?
Right, so the Planner 6 is the Oahu Historic Preservation Commission, and then the 2 other, this is Transit-Oriented Development, TOD Planner 6 positions, 2 of those that are currently vacant, but 1 is pending.
Wait, so pause real quick, pause. So page 12 and 13, we have the Oahu Historic Preservation Commission Planner 4. Then on page 13, we have Oahu Historic Preservation Assistant 3. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you asked for a Historic Preservation Planner 6, or was that not it?
Yes, I think it's a 6. That's for the administrator of the commission.
Okay, so you're saying that for the commission, we have an assistant, and then we have a separate 4 position, but the 6 would be the administrator?
Yes, I believe so. The 6 is, the 6, okay, so I apologize. The current 6 that we're using is TAing under Land Use Permits Division for the administrator currently. And that is a what position? It's a 6. And then the 4, apologize, the 4 is, okay, we already have the 4.
Okay, I see Chair nodding his head, so maybe he's getting this, but I do believe we have the 2.
I'm not quite getting it. So just to be clear, we're proposing adding a planner 4 and adding a office assistant 3, both of which would help the Oahu Historic Preservation Commission.
Correct.
So we're proposing adding 2 positions with those names. Would it be correct then, are you saying we should have 2 positions, one of which is a planner 6 instead?
Sorry, okay.
Or 3 positions total?
So you're correct about the Oahu Historic Preservation Commission, the 4 and the...
We have 4 and 3 inside.
4 and 3. And then the 6 is currently in our Land Use Permits Division, a separate one, but that was being cut. But our current administrator for the commission is being TA'd from that position to serve for the Oahu Historic Preservation Commission. So if you cut the 6, then we don't have that position to serve currently for the Historic Preservation Commission.
Oh, so it was in land use permits,
Yes.
the one that you're asking
Yes.
to retain?
Yes,
Yeah.
to restore it.
And on the land use permit side, we are restoring funding for a planner 4, but that's different.
Yes, that's different
Okay.
and separate.
Okay, I understand. I'm sure Chair is getting it. Thank you for your follow-up questions, Chair. Thank you, Director.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? I'll note that we do have the opportunity between today and June 4th to make further changes. We have about a $6 million buffer between the CD2 and what's needed in the end. It's really, we also want to have some degree of buffer on top of that, but there will be an opportunity, I think, to revisit some of these technical changes to make sure that departments can do what they need to do. Council Vice Chair Wire?
Thank you, Chair. I just had a quick question for Director Puna. And just if you can remind me, so are the positions actually deleted, or would you have unused salary savings that could be used to fund these positions that you're requesting?
So for some of them, I believe the position and the funding were removed, and for others, it was just the salaries. Is that
Okay.
correct? No, all of them it was vacant.
All of them were the position also removed? So I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm gonna have Gina explain.
Okay,
Thanks.
Mahalo Deputy Director.
Yes, for some of our positions, the actual position, the position count is being reduced.
Okay,
So you would essentially take away the opportunity for us to hire into that position.
Yeah.
Which is different from just reducing salaries or using funding.
yeah.
So
no,
if we do have a lapse in funds, we can use it as long as the position count is still there.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you for that insight. And so definitely supportive of resolving if possible. Appreciate Budget Chair's work. I know there's a lot of good work going on, so mahalo.
No, thank you. Okay, members, since we went through 9, 10, and 11. We have page 12, which was the agricultural planning position, and the planner 4 for Oahu Historic Preservation, and page 13 was the office assistant 3 for Oahu Historic Preservation Commission. Continuing on to the end of page 13, this also restores 2 positions, funding for 2 positions within the customer service area of DPP. Okay, any other questions on DPP for now? Okay, I see Director Kawano.
Good morning, Budget Committee Chair Dos Santos Tam, City Council Chair Waters, Honorable Council Members, Andy Kawano, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. As I've gone through pages 6 through 13 with staff and our Deputy Director of BFS, I just wanted to point out to council members that with regard to the funding source changes, since they're discretely presented, from the sewer fund to the general fund, I want council members to keep in mind that, you know, we allocate shared costs through the case allocation process to all of the special funds, and the sewer fund is a special fund. So if we make these changes, which amount to nearly $4 million, we're gonna have to look at our cost allocations because the funds have to be reasonably charged. So I just want to point that out. So we're going to have to look at that after today's meeting. Thank you.
All right. I'd just like to ask the reasonableness. Who makes that determination and who sets that policy?
I do with my staff.
Okay. Members, any other questions? Okay, thank you. That's a good note. Okay, we're going to continue on, members, on to page 14. Starting with page 14, this is the Department of Design and Construction. Page 14 proposes restoration of funding for salaries. Page 15 restores funding for hazmat testing and or abatement in city facilities. Page 16 deals with out-of-state travel. Page 17 is Cocoa Head Stables, but that's going to be moved to CIP. And then at the top of page 18, Haiku Stairs. Now that we've gone through this, Director Millis.
Thank you, Committee Chair. Good morning, Council members. Haku Millis, Director for the Department of Design and Construction. I want to thank the committee, thank you, Committee Chair, for restoring positions, specifically ones that we have hired or making one offer to and hired the other. I wanted to talk briefly of the other positions that would like to request they be restored as well. Of the 8 reduced, we were requesting a total of 5 be reinstored for funding. Specifically, the Civil Engineer 5 position that has been vacant, as you mentioned, for 3 years. We have hired many Civil Engineer 5s over the last 3 years. We just haven't slated one specifically into this spot. And so I think I mentioned at our original briefing that we've hired, I think, 13 engineers over the last 8 months. And we do anticipate that we will be able to fill this position relatively quickly. Would really appreciate that one to be reinstated. The other was a drafting tech 5. We were working with DHR on some adjustments of description and position description. before we can actually fill that position. And so that one we request as well to be able to support our facilities division. The last one is our supervising building construction inspector. We are short on inspectors for the moment, and it's very difficult to provide coverage for various facilities projects like parks where we need inspectors, or we need to heavily rely on our consultants who are providing construction management support for us. Altogether, those positions total about $298,000. And so I do ask and request, would love some additional discussion if possible to talk further about those positions. As it relates to the specific items, we do appreciate restoration of the $100,000 for hazmat remediation and work. That was part of a $400,000 current expenses item. That $400,000 also included the Cocoa Head Stables, some work at the Cocoa Head Stables. There was it's proposed to move that to capital improvement budget. Unfortunately for us, that cost is proposed for demolition of work at the stables. And so we would not be able to utilize capital improvement funds specifically for a demolition project. So would like to request the original 400, which is supporting about 100,000 for hazmat, and then the various other city projects, including the stables demolition work of that 400,000. Thank you.
Okay, members, any questions? Floor Leader Cordero.
Thank you, Director Millis. Why can't we use Cocoa Head Stable through CIP again? Would you be able to explain that?
Thank you for the question. Yes. So I'm not a money guy, but in talking with our budget and fiscal services, my understanding is that when we have capital improvement funds, they must be creating it must be part of a capital improvement. If we're doing demolition work, similar to what we're doing to the Haiku stairs, right? We are demolishing something, and so there is no capital that is being created from that. So we can't fund a demolition project with capital funds.
Okay, thank you. I know last year in the budget, it was proposed as well, and I'm not 100% sure if it was moved to CIP or if it was kept in operating last year, but does that mean there were no funds spent for Cocoa Head Stables in this current fiscal year?
So we were able to utilize some of those funds to do testing because we needed to check on the hazardous materials, potential hazardous materials before we demolish. And so we awarded a contract. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I can get you that, the total that we spent specifically for testing in anticipation for demolition. And part of that was we were hoping that if we didn't find any hazardous material, that this is a project that could potentially be done in-house because there are hazardous materials at the site. It's not something we can do in-house, and we will have to hire an outside contractor to do the demolition.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
Chair Waters.
Thank you. Could you be more specific as to exactly what the money would be spent on?
Thank you for the question. So the money that we have in for current expenses that we are anticipating to use for the stables is to demolish 2 buildings that we need to demolish as we believe they are unsafe.
And that's going to cost $400,000, almost $500,000. I mean, what is this building made out of?
Thank you for the question and for the opportunity to clarify. So we have $400,000 for current expenses to support various projects, including about $100,000 that's specifically for hazardous materials. And so when hazardous material issues come up that we need to test or remediate, we're able to tap those funds, similar to what has happened here at Honolulu Hale, where we come across an issue and we need to get testing done. We're able to tap the funds in this line item. And so the $400,000 isn't the total estimate. It's closer to $200,000, $250,000 for demolition of those two buildings.
Okay. But again, what are these buildings made of that's going to cost $250,000 to demolish? Can't we just get a backhoe in there and just knock it down? I mean, I'm assuming it's not cement.
Thank you for the question. So the issue is the hazardous material and how it's treated and disposed of. And so it's mostly wooden buildings, but because we have to, we can't just demolish it and take it to like PVT. There are requirements that we must comply with when dealing with hazardous materials.
What is the hazardous material that we're talking about here?
The specifics are, I mean, I know there's lead paint. I have to go back. I have a full report that I can share with council.
I mean, are we talking about a barn?
There are stables and, well, yeah, it's a significant size stable and kind of like a barn out there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Chair. I'd ask you just take it under advisement at this point until we learn more about what's going on there. Thank you.
Agreed. And you know, there are a number of these kind of smaller little projects that as we start the budget process, you know, we move things from operating capital and vice versa, and we're finally getting to some clarity as to exactly which funds are the correct funds to be used for which project. And hopefully we can marry them together as we head into the FD1. So thank you, Director. Thank you.
Chair, quick question.
Yes, Councilmember Tupola.
Page 6, it is 16. It is for you. On the proposed amendment, the fund is GN/HI. I just couldn't find the definition of HI.
HI is highway funds, correct?
Oh, so I thought
correct,
the
highway funds.
I thought the highway fund was HW, no?
Oh, HW, but it was, I believe that the proposed amendment, wait, what is HI?
Well,
okay, it was HI is a incorrect. Is
okay,
incorrect.
Thank
That's
you.
why.
I was like,
and so we split it to be GN and HW.
And HW.
Yeah, so that's the proposed amendment column has GNHI. The correct column on the far right, which is a recommendation, has it correctly in GN and then in HW.
Thank you, Chair.
Yep. Okay, members, any other questions on the DDC portion? Okay. Picking back up, bottom of page 18, we're going to start with the Department of Facility Maintenance. These are mostly the types of funds, making corresponding changes, as well as reducing, I guess that's all it is for DFM. Any questions? Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you. For Director Albano, please.
Good morning, Budget Chair, Council members. Gene Albano, Director, Facility Maintenance.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for being here. I had a quick question. It's not in this current budget, which I'm hoping maybe you guys have funds for, or maybe we talk about adding it to a floor draft if necessary. We've talked about the need for another long reach excavator, especially for cleaning our streams. I think the current one right now is in Halava. We need it to be at Maipaloa Stream in Maili in Waianae right now. So please talk to me about the cost for that, where you foresee that cost coming from. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. We currently are waiting for our second long reach excavator, which would be procured by the end of the year. We hope to have that, and then we appreciate a third long reach as well. We have gotten budget estimates, and it's roughly $400,000 for an additional.
And so the one that's being procured, you already had funds from a previous year,
Yes,
and it's
that is
arriving
correct.
this year?
We're cautiously optimistic it will be on island by the end of the year.
Okay, I'll be waiting at the dock to come see it. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Chair.
All right, members, any other questions for DFM right now?
Right now.
Okay, seeing none, starting on page 19, HPD. Page 19, this is reducing funding for out-of-state travel and restoring some of it. Page 20, this is Chair Waters for communication to media and the public, $250,000. Page 21, leases and restoration of some portion of vehicle funds. Page 22, a small reduction in out-of-state travel expense, and restoring funding for software. Any questions for HPD's portion? Councilmember Tupola.
This might be a question for you, unless Chief wants to address it, but I just wanted to know a little bit about the MTQ assessment software, how you think that that would really benefit the current hiring process.
I'll defer to Chief Logan. Chief Logan.
We're still, good morning, council members. Chair DeSantos Tam, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the question. So we're still looking at software and how we can use that for our hiring process and how can it speed up part of the process. We've already narrowed down the process from 6 months to about 3.5 months, really depending on the individual themselves. But it would help us with the background check and some other things. So it's an opportunity. I know other police departments are using that software, and so we're looking towards that.
Do you think that would also help with taking out some of the subjectivity to like maybe personal bias? Like, is this just going to be able to basically just treat it as a form that's looked at? There's been various people that have contacted me about how sometimes getting detectives involved and other people does create a little bit of bias in the hiring process. Do you think this would also resolve that?
So if you're looking at a person who's in the process of the hiring, there are multiple things that happen in that process: background checks, interviews, what do you call that?
The psychoanalysis, you guys have your lie detector test. You guys,
yeah, so we have the lie detector test, those interviews that come with that, and then the physical, both agility and the medical. So all of those are a consolidated of groups of things that the detectives within the administration bureau take a look at to make a decision as to an individual's moving forward into the department.
So this software would help with all of those different tests?
I don't know that for sure. I'd have to make sure that that is, but we do our best to take any biases out of those things. You know, the psychological is a big issue and concern, but that's not the largest blockage or hurdle that people have to get over. Really, the biggest part is the background check, and what does that determine an individual's suitability for the Honolulu Police Department.
Yeah, we'll watch this one closely. I'll work with you, Chief, because I think the 11,000, to me, I just wanted to know if that was too little, too much, but seeing as though it sounds like it's very new for you guys, let's see how this goes to see if it really does help expedite it, could really be helpful to the department. Thank you,
We appreciate that.
Thank you, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any other questions for HPD at this time? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Chief.
Can I make some comments?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay. So thank you for the restoration of many of the things and half of the salary savings. We still look at 12.5 million being cut from salaries, and that reduction has some impact. We also see a 1.5 million reduction in our current expenses, moving our vehicles back from out of the CIP into, but it cut it down to 1.5 million. So there's 50 vehicles instead of 63 that we need to replace our aging fleet. And so we'd have to take that out of Hyde under current expenses. And then the 400,000 proviso for the CPTs. Understand the concept and the intent of that, but I would ask you just put the 400,000 within our current expenses. Let us execute that in the manner that it's done, because it's going to come out of that budget anyway. And then but it's just more refined if it's in the proviso that we have to spend it within only the certain category, and we can never go outside that category, if that makes sense. Also, we're processing right, and so the vacancy savings, that 12.5 million, we use that to help us with funding our PSOs cadet program, also our interns from universities that are interested in joining the Honolulu Police Department. And right now we're in the process of 78 new PSO applications that are coming in. That's a continuous recruitment opportunity. And then on June 1st, we're opening the third cohort for our internships from our universities. And so right now we have 14 cadets, of which we have 9 left that are currently employed. The other 5 are in our recruit school or have graduated for our recruit school. So it is a program that is absolutely working in our favor. And as we continue to build that transition of individuals from either high school or outside in another career they want to change, here's this opportunity for us. So reducing that savings even more may impact that in the future, but more to be seen on that.
Okay.
Yeah, and our vehicles is in our current equipment, in our equipment, not in current expenses.
Okay, Floor Leader Cordero.
Thank you. Aloha, Chief Logan. Thank you very much for stating that response to the proposed cuts that are still in there. I respectfully believe that the $400,000 for each community policing team is still necessary because I know that maybe the proviso could be worked out in between now and June 4 when we hope to pass the budget. But each community policing team or each HPD patrol team has varying concerns and varying needs, right? Like the RAP program that's in my district, that's not in all other districts, right? So, or just different needs. And so if there's a way that we can ensure that there's funding that can go there, maybe 400,000 is maybe too much, maybe we can adjust that and look at that. But I think allowing that specific funding is necessary. And if you wanted to go back into the specific agencies or divisions that you have, I know that those were taken from either your division, Office of the Chief of Police, in support services or admin services. However, in the past 4 fiscal years, for example, admin services has lapsed no more than $9 million in the department. So we are able, and HPD has been able to come to the council and transfer that funding. So $400,000 per community, $400,000 to support community policing teams is necessary. And as you know, from my proposed budget, I have proposed cuts that I think that could give the council and the city a little more buffer as well. But regardless, I understand that majority of it was placed back after, I'm sure the budget chair discussed it with you and your team. But I do think that through, especially administrative services and support services, you will be able to find the funding if you need to transfer it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Cordero. Agreed with there's going to be options and opportunities, so we hope that you'll take those, especially in the third quarter, fourth quarter, leading up into next year, so we don't have to wait till the last minute to try to do some of these spends. I'll take a look at some of the suggestions you gave for some of the programs for hiring, but I just want to just encourage you that the retention is so important. So, I was hoping to see some of those in your budget, but again, you guys have a pretty flexible budget, so you could still be able to use the funds you have for that. I think also just wanted to iterate the need for us to have some contingency pay for our dispatchers. Many of them are being mandated to stay after because we're short. And that's one of the conversations they're having with HGEA, but the contingency pay would help. So anything we can do to keep those who are working better incentivized, I think that would be great. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
So thank you, Councilmember Tupola and Councilmember Cordero for that. The 400,000 proviso for CPT, let me come back to you with a better figure that's more accurate of what each district absolutely needs for the expenditures. A lot of it is equipment and items that they need that we can buy just with current expenses, and that's fairly easy for us to do without having to dip into a proviso. But I owe you a better number than 400,000, so let me get a more accurate number. We're looking at retention bonuses right now at about 202 people if they could chose to retire. So adding a bonus to them is about 2.4 million. So looking at a retention bonus of individuals to stay longer in our department, that's one. We're also looking at referral bonuses. So those individuals in the department that refer either PCOs, civilian hires, or those to join our department, we're looking, that's probably a much smaller number, about 250,000. That, of course, wouldn't come into effect until the individual is processed through and either graduates or gets hired. So that's probably something that's later in the fiscal year. And so those are kinds of the things that we're looking at for retention. So we are working with the union. We're in conversations with them. We're working toward a finalized supplemental here in the future.
Yeah, that's great. Chief, thanks so much for the update. Sorry, one more thing, Chair, I'll be done real quick. We need that contract to be updated. So I think every year Shopo updates it with you guys as far as, I don't know exactly what. The reason why I'm saying this is because our school resource officer finalization of the program needs to be done once their contract is done. So if you could put that on your radar, please. We're a few months away from the start of school, and we would really like to have those two different schools start off this school year with the school resource officer.
Yes, thank you for that. I know the Shopo is working towards some hearings in June for their contract. Now, when that gets ratified, might even be as late as December, based on past practices, but we'll see about that. Our SROs are planning to go to school or training for the week and then start in the August timeframe for the next school year. So we will, part of that 12.5 million that's being reduced from our budget is part of the money that we're using for those salaries. But we'll continue to drive forward on that program. We're not going to cut that. This is a pilot. We need to see if it works.
Okay, thank you. That'd be great. I don't want anything to hold up the start of that. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any questions, any further questions for HPD on these pages? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Chief. Page 23, TPP, restoring funding within the building area as well as anything there? Okay, and then bottom page 23, transportation engineering. Page 24, transportation engineering. This is for the Centennial Park bus staging, matching funds in Waikiki. Bottom page 24, ocean safety. Let's walk through ocean safety, starting at the bottom 24, adding funding for salaries, and then changing the category of funding within ocean safety. This deals with Hanauma Bay versus general fund. This was at the department's request.
Quick question,
Yes.
Chair. For Chief Logger, you know, for the switching of funds, you guys are able to use the Hanauma Bay funds for your salaries? Or is it just for those lifeguards at that location?
Yeah, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, and council members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I think I can answer your question. This amendment for ocean safety is incorrect. The department wishes to decrease $268,551 from the department general fund allotment and increase the Hanauma Bay Fund allotment by the same amount. The character expenditure allotments are correct, but the fund totals were incorrect when summing on the budget bill.
What is the number that you wanted it to be? One more time, please.
We just need the allotments to change by $268,551. The character expenditures are correct. We just only need the allotments for the Hanauma Bay and the General Bay Fund to change.
The allotments to the fund and not for salaries? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, that is correct.
I see. Okay, I think Chair's nodding because I also had the question on that. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Chair.
So just to be clear, of this $268,551, it is not all salaries and funds other activities, and so the proviso should be removed. Is that?
I believe talking to our BFS analyst, it's just the source of the allotment part for the general fund and Hanauma Bay Fund, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Okay, I see Director Kawano coming up here. Okay, Director Kawano.
Andy Kawano, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. Budget Chair, I believe based on the schedule, the allotment is meant source of funding. So they needed the source of funding change from general fund to Hanauma Bay, right? So I believe that it is correct as is. So on page 25, your adjustments are correct. So I just want to ask the director here one quick question with regard to the proviso. Hold on. Okay, so the way it is correct.
Okay.
The way you have it in your worksheet. Yeah.
Okay, great. Good.
Thank you.
Good clarification. Chair Waters.
Thank you so much. Are these monies being used for lifeguards that are stationed at Hanauma Bay?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Director. On to the Department of Emergency Services, starting at the bottom of page 25. Page 26, this should be of interest to Councilmember Tupola as well as Councilmember Wire, and the adjacent areas that will be served. And then page 27, same thing. Councilmember Tupola.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chair. Just for the record, Dr. Ireland, I wanted you to explain exactly why we're suggesting it in Ko'olina. I think you had some good justification after we spoke. I thought that this is reasonable, and of course the community was in favor of it when I spoke to community members in that area. So for the record, could you share how you think it'd be more advantageous for us to have it there?
Sure. Thank you, James Ireland, Director, Honolulu Emergency Services Department. You know, I get the 911 board on my phone here, and I think this will speak for itself, but I want to explain it as well. We have a call at Kapolei High School right now. That's number one. We have a call, where else? Let's see, I'm going to scroll through these. In Waipahu right now. We have another call in Waipahu right now. We have a call at Kamakana Ali'i Mall. There's 4. We have a call that Nanakuli's on. That's 5. Let's see, what else? Is there more? It's 5 calls in Eva right now. Okay. Oh, another call in Waipahu. So that's 6. And then there's a pending call at the Marriott at Ko'olina. So 7 calls literally right now in West Oahu. We have Waianae, Nanakuli, Makakilo. That's 3 ambulances. Waipahu, Eva Beach. That's 5. That's for the whole west side. For these calls, Waipio came in and is helping out on one of them. So we definitely, just like everywhere on the island, we need more service for EMS on the west side of Oahu. Ko'olina as a site seemed ideal because they could kind of go left or right. Not to mention that there's a fair number of calls on the property as well, including visitors, employees at the luau, at the different hotels, as well as the permanent and seasonal residents who live there. But also that ambulance would be the first backup to go out to the Waianae coast if Nanakuli and the Waianae units were out, which would allow Makakilo to serve and stay in Kapolei more often. So it seemed like an ideal location, not only for the area around the property in Honouliuli, but also to go back up into the Waianae coast or into Kapolei. So it's an ideal location. The funding and the plan, which is very much appreciated, is to start out as a 12-hour peak time unit and then possibly expand that to 24 hours in future budget years.
Yeah, no, that's great. You know, people don't understand really from Kapolei to Ko'olina, even though it seems close. For my coast, it makes a difference. Just that little stretch of traffic, depending on what the day is, what the time is. So thank you for, suggesting this. I'm looking forward to supporting you. Anything else that we can do to make it easy transition or bring more resources, the community is in favor of that. Thank you, Director.
And I think just one other thing to note, like other rural communities on Oahu, there's no hospital out there. Very, very minorly injured patients or silk patients can go to Waianae CompER, but really everybody has to go to Queens Medical Center, West Oahu. So that's taking the ambulances out of the area for longer. So even more so to have backfill or the availability to help is huge. I also might add that we've secured already a location for the station. And so really everything's lined up, just pending the funding.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Floor Leader Cordero.
Thank you. Hi, Director Ireland. I want to inquire about the source of funding because last year we only request was for 5 ambulances, and just last week you guys blessed in my district 16 vehicles. So just wondering the source of funding for that, which includes the rigs, the core sprinter vans, as well as the ambubus. Is that correct? So which fiscal year did those vehicles come out of?
So there's what we're talking about in this ad is for
yes, I know that. But can you talk about Can you talk about what you just blessed? Because I'm trying to figure out where you're getting the vehicles and the amount of time it takes to get here versus, I guess, how much we're going to be budgeting for in the future.
So generally, these have come out over the last 2 fiscal years. It takes 18 months to 2 years to get a vehicle. So what is still outstanding from previous fiscal years is 4 more remounts and 4 more brand new ambulances. So in addition to the 14 for EMS, I'm not counting the 2 for core, but the 14 for EMS, 8 more are coming. So that will be a total of, I think, on my math here, 22 ambulances. In this proposed budget, we're looking at 11 remounts. If we do all 11 remounts plus the 22 that came, that would be a total of 33 ambulances by this time next year that we would have, which would allow all our frontline ambulances to be essentially new. The 4 we're planning for expansion, essentially new, and then have a first out relief ambulance in each EMS district, which there's 4 on Oahu, to be essentially brand new. So this will completely modernize our fleet and bring it up to just top standard. Now going forward, we probably are always going to need anywhere from 1 to 4 new or remounted ambulances in the budget beyond this year, but this year we are asking for 11.
Okay, and so when you said moving forward, does that mean it's going to be like 5 or 6 years down the line as the ambulances last maybe 6 to 8 years?
Well, the town units last anywhere from 2 to 4 years, depending on how busy they are, and then they go into relief status. So I think, number one, replacing existing ambulances as well as expansion, probably every budget year will come to you folks and ask for 2 to 4 either new ambulances or remounts, knowing that it's going to take up to 2 years to get them.
Okay, thank you. So 2 years to get here. Okay, got it.
Well, from the time that they're approved in the budget to we go out for procurement and they tell us how long it's going to take them to make them, it's about 2 years, up to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Chair, Public Safety Chair Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Dr. Ireland. I want to thank you. We had a really good event, those of us who were able to attend the blessing of the new fleet. I wanted to just kind of tag on to what Councilmember Cordero has been asking. So you did mention the 1 to 4 new or remounted ambulances per year that's needed, and then you just mentioned the relief status. So with this new fleet that just came in, are they being added to what we have currently? Are they replacing? What is the relief status?
So generally, they will go in as a frontline ambulance, and the ambulance it replaces will go into the relief status, meaning it will be a backup ambulance in the event one of these ambulances has to go in for service or warranty work or breaks down. One of the newer ambulance, of the 14 we got, in our budget, we had planned to open an ambulance in Kaimuki. One will be going to Kaimuki. I imagine if these council ads are approved in Monowili and Ko'olina, they will also be going there as new ambulances. So they're not necessarily replacing something because there was nothing there before. The ambulances that are getting taken out of service, if they have more than 300,000 miles on them, they will probably be targeted for a remount in the coming year. And so we save the box, but it'll be a new chassis.
Thank you. And so the current fleet with everything right now is, again, the total. Could you give me that number?
Sure, and I always have to double think about this. So 14, not counting core and the ambulance bus, we have 6 brand new now and 8 remounts that were blessed. In the same procurement, they still owe us 4 remounts. So those 4 ambulances are in Washington being remounted and are scheduled to come back within the next 90 days. We're also owed or going to be delivered 4 brand new ambulances, which they're just starting on building this week, and we expect those probably just towards the end of this year. So that will be a total of 18. That'll be a total of 22 ambulances, 10 brand new and 12 remounted. And then in this proposed budget, we're looking for 11 more remounted.
And the ones that will then be with the 300,000 miles plus, those are the ones. How many are going to be leaving the fleet or becoming remounts?
So we just take the oldest ambulances that are still in good shape and target them. We have a whole team that does this at the department, but looks at making sure the box is in good condition. It hasn't been remounted before, no structural damage, and those will be targeted for remount. Just mostly the high mileage vehicles. If the vehicle is still good and otherwise in good condition, we use it just as a backup ambulance or in the event of a disaster, that sort of thing.
Thank you. I again do appreciate the efforts that have been put into making sure that your resources with the fleet of ambulances has been addressed. My second question with that, now we have these new ambulances, do we have the staffing to fill them? Because I know that we had a new recruit class, but they're, again, the BLS, the EMT level, they're not paramedics yet. So I am just curious, if we are adding in these new ambulances, what is the situation with having them then staffed properly?
Yeah, so staffing right now is really good. We have about, I think, 17 new EMTs on evaluation. I think they're doing paramedic interviews now, mostly out-of-state candidates, but one in-state candidate. And then I think we have 4 or 5 people graduating from paramedic school this month, I think. We'll send another 12 to 14 people to paramedic school in August. So the answer is our staffing right now is great, but to meet the challenges of potentially 4 new 12-hour ambulances, we're going to need to continue recruitment. We're going to start our own EMT academy in July, 25 people, but rather than 1 a year, we may need to actually increase that to 2 a year. And we also may need to increase the number of people from our department we send to paramedic school every year. And I think this year we're going to send more than last year. But again, that is always a concern that as you grow, you have to be able to fill those ambulances.
Correct. And with the 17 new EMTs, we got to meet some there that were there at the event. It was really nice to meet them. It does take some time for them to become paramedics, right? To go through the schooling before they can then go to the next level.
So exactly right. If those 17 said today, all of them, I want to be a paramedic, they're going to need to work in the field at least a year, and then at paramedic schools a year. So for most of them, it's a 2-year process. About 4 of them, I believe, have had experience previously either with us or other ambulance services, so they could actually go to paramedic school next month if they wanted. But my feeling is most of them are going to wait at least 1 or 2 years to go.
Okay. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair.
All right, members, any other questions for EMS? Okay, hearing none. Medical examiner is at the bottom of page 27. This is restoring $50,000 for salary, $50,880. Any questions on that? Okay, seeing none, members, we do have some good news. We are now on page 28. If you go to the end of our worksheets here, it goes to page 56, and then we go to proviso, so we're halfway through the non-provisoed stuff. All right, starting with DFM, picking back up on DFM, page 28. This takes out the information specialist 3 out of DFM that was proposed. I see we have Director Albano. Any comments on this?
We have no objections to the deletion. Thank you, Budget Chair.
Thank you. All right, page 28. This moves the $8 million for improvements to roads in Kaka'ako back into the operating side out of the capital side because the improvements to the roadway don't meet the requirements for capital expenditures since it's just resurfacing the top few inches of the roadway. Page 30. Page 30 is the homeless services for the Waikiki Business Improvement District. Director, comments?
Yes. First off, we appreciate the restoration of the $8 million for road restoration. However, we do have strong reservations with the proviso where it's identified specifically for Kaka'ako. As presented at the PIT committee, we do go through a process in identifying road priorities and making sure that we are addressing the most worst condition roads, and there are identified roads that are ahead of Kaka'ako area.
Okay, members, any questions? Councilmember Tupola.
Director, could you address the page 30 with the Waikiki Business Improvement District? So you guys are in support of removing that?
That is correct. Should be with customer services for their implementation of servicing the homeless in the Waikiki area.
So CSD?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Not CSD, but
DCS?
community service, my bad.
No, it's okay. DCS.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Page 31, this starts ENV. This is a interesting one. You'll note the fund code, there are some sub-accounts. So that's just what the smaller print often is. Starting at page 31, this would restore some funding for travel out of the refuse account, and restore funding for travel out of solid waste and recycling on page 32. On page 33, this restores some funding within the refuse account. And we're going to pause here, and I see we have Director Babcock.
Good morning, council members. Roger Babcock, Director, Department of Environmental Services. Don't have any comments about the refuse section. Appreciate the restoration of funding for those.
Yeah. So now we're going to start on the sewage side, if there are no questions on the refuse and solid waste side. And
Chair,
recycling. Oh, Councilmember Tupola.
On page 32, what is the funding description WF-HP, WF-RC?
That's the solid waste disposal account. That's HP for H-Power. And then RC is the recycling account. So they have sub-accounts within the solid waste.
Sorry, I just didn't know
area.
the
Yeah,
RC
no.
and the HP. So HP is for H-Power.
Correct?
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
And then on page 31, it's WFGN, and that's just their general refuse operating account. Okay, so picking back up at the bottom of page 33, this is the beginning of the sewer portion, and I know some members are going to have a lot of questions and discussion here. At the bottom of page 33, what we've been able to identify within the, by changing how some of the operations outside of ENV are funded, by restoring them to the general fund side, we've freed up $3.97 million for the sewer fund. That's at the bottom of page 33. And since they were proposing $10 million for customer assistance, I'm going to be proposing adding that into the customer assistance program. So now it's nearly $14 million for the future customer assistance program for low-income sewer ratepayers. So that's what that is. Page 34, this is restoring funding for a number of salary positions that the department believes is critical. Page 35, this is restoring funding for current expenses, including vehicles. Page 36 is more restoring of salaries that the department, again, thinks is critical. Page 37, restoring funding for salaries for things the department feels is critical. Same thing on pages 38 and 39, and then into the top of page 40. And then there's restoring funding for within treatment and disposal for various supplies, as well as rentals of motor vehicles, because the department rents vehicles for the treatment and disposal of sewer things that need to be moved via these vehicles. Now, Director, I'm sure you have lots of comments about these.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair and committee members. We'd like to acknowledge and appreciate all the funding that was restored, especially for positions. Over 40 positions were restored out of, initially there was 97 that were proposed for funding cuts. I did want to just highlight 3 positions that were not restored that are important. The first is these are all in sewer, in wastewater. First one is in, let's see, the first couple are in administration. One is for a management analyst 4, In the CD1, it was 020131. This is an important position, and it's part of a current reorganization that's pending. And the position would be reallocated to an admin specialist. And so it's an important part of our reorganization of that, of the administration division. The next one I wanted to mention is a position for an asset manager, which is in also administration. It's 020135. No, I'm sorry. That's the wrong one. I apologize. It's 020430, and it's the fleet coordinator, not the asset manager. Fleet coordinator is a very important position. This is a position in administration. It does fleet coordination for both refuse and sewer. And we have hundreds of vehicles, as you know, and this position is really critical to making sure that the fleet, as you know, we've had fleet issues on the refuse side especially. We order a couple of dozen vehicles every year. We have to manage where these vehicles are coming from, where they're going, where they're assigned, as well as watching about their maintenance and trying to track down with parts ordering and many other things. So the fleet coordinator is a really critical position. We do have somebody that's been TAing in that position for a couple of years, and we've been trying to, we plan to do a permanent fill for that position. So that is very important. I just wanted to mention that. One more to mention is a position that is in collection system maintenance, which is an assistant storekeeper. That's 010520. Storekeepers are really important. We have a lot of pieces and parts of equipment that we have in our warehouses for all our divisions, but especially collection system maintenance. There's pipes and pumps and valves and many things. There are, in CSM, we have one of 3 storekeeper positions filled, and there are 2 others that are vacant. So this one is, and we do recruiting, and we've done interviews, but we haven't been able to fill, and in some cases we've filled and then the person hasn't stayed. So we do need to continue to try to fill our storekeeper positions, so we'd like to have that one restored. And then with respect to any other questions, of course, I'll be happy to answer. Thanks.
All right, members, any further questions for Director Babcock? Maybe we'll have more questions after Director Quano's discussion with him.
Okay, I didn't understand that, yeah. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Chair. I did have a question, and that is, starting on page 35, there's several positions for in WEC, Wastewater Engineering Construction Division. Starting at the bottom, there are several positions where, let's see, there's one, no, there's really only 2, right? There's 2. Right, so the dollars are being restored, but the position count is being deleted. So not really sure what that means, but it sounds like I can't fill it if the position is deleted.
No, thank you. That's a good flag. The reason why it appears that the positions were deleted is that when my office proposed restoring it, we filled out the worksheet with one additional position. And so the proposed amendment would have added a new position versus just giving you the money for the existing position. That's for that. I think there's a few other areas where after between the CD2 and the FD, we'll make sure that that's the case. But for this instance, it was because we had proposed restoring the funding and added a position, whereas all we really should have done in the worksheet is added a position.
Is added, okay.
Or sorry, added the funding back.
For the position, yep, thank you, that makes sense. Okay, any other questions? Okay, stick around. I think there's some more sewer things later on. Thank
All right.
you.
Members, we are now on page 41, and this is Housing and Land Management. For housing and land management, this is all of page 41. This would restore funding for 2 positions and within administration, and then within housing policy, it would add funding for salaries as well as current expenses. I believe we have the director of the Office of Housing here. And maybe a good place to start is the $43,300 for current expenses.
Certainly. Thank you so much, Budget Committee Chair DeSantis Tam, and aloha, council members. Kevin Auger, Director Designate of the Office of Housing and Land Management. First of all, we're extremely grateful for the restoration of the positions and the expenses. On the $43,000 in current expenses, that's simply a carryover from the Office of Housing budget that was in the MDO, in the Managing Director's office. When it came over, it didn't come over across when we did the reorganization, so it's simply restoring that. Those are the current expenses for the Housing Policy Division. Shall I go on, Chair?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, sure. And then there was $54,984 in a position that's currently occupied that was also not transferred over to the Department of Housing and Land Management as part of the reorganization of the budget process. It just fell through the cracks, so we're grateful for that, for being restored. There were additionally 2 salaries for $153,576,000. Those are for a property management officer, which is currently in recruitment. In fact, we're interviewing folks for that position now, and a Planner 6 position that will support city acquisitions as part of the new reorganization.
All right, members, any questions on this? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Move on to page 42. This begins the Department of Community Services. Starting on page 42, at the top, this would restore funding for salaries within elderly affairs, and then within Work Hawaii, same thing, but we are going to consolidate the specifically named positions and say instead various Work Hawaii positions. On page 43, this would restore funding for salaries, and there is a note about the position count, and again, it's because on our worksheets, we put in 1 position and it was just moving things between community assistance and community-based development. And then at the top of page 44, this would reduce funding for certain fixed charges within community-based development. We have the Deputy Director, Edward Los Baños, for comments on the DCS budget.
Aloha, Edward Los Baños, Deputy Director, Department of Community Services. We appreciate the Council's restoration of certain positions to our budget, but we did want to make some comments to restore some positions that had not been restored. First off, starting the Elderly Affairs Division, 1 supervising community service worker and 6 community service workers. For these positions, they're pending a reorg that's currently routing right now. We're at the final leg where the Managing Director has to sign the new the new organization. But for these positions, we hadn't used in the past years because of the leveling. The reorg kind of updates us from a 1980s model of Elderly Affairs Division. What that looked like was more the community social events like you see at Mo'ilili Community Center or at Lanakila Senior Resource Center, to what they deal with now, which are more cognitive disabilities in our senior population, as well as physical disabilities, and the kind of services we provide are a lot different than what they were in the 80s. So we couldn't use the community service workers. They're being recommended to be re-leveled as planners instead, because they need that level of sophistication, education, to do the evaluation and assessment of our seniors in order to get them the services and the funding that we provide. So that's why we haven't used them, those positions in particular. We've used the funding in the past to fund these positions, but not the positions as community service workers themselves. So we're asking for the restoration of that, and what they will be doing in our future reorganization. We do have a handful of workers already working off of contracts that would serve as a pool that we could automatically look to hire and fill these positions with if the funding is restored and move forward. So we're asking for restoration of that. Another set of positions are in the Community Assistance Division. Urban Rehab Inspector 2, as well as an Office Assistant 3. We're looking to fill these positions. Office Assistant 3 is out for recruitment right now. The Inspector 2, I do have a workers' comp issue that I'm working through with the current Inspector 2 in the area. I am looking to fill that position just to provide some coverage to manage this workers' comp situation, or if it develops further, then I might actually need that position to make sure there's no loss in service to customers there. Final comment I have is relative to the last item on top of page 44. The project identified relative to the $88,558 was not general funded. It was affordable housing funded. So that designation, GN, should be an AF. We don't disagree with the reduction, just the funding source.
Okay, we will note that. Members, any questions? Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you so much. Aloha, Deputy. Real quick, your Elderly Affairs Division's position was how many?
There were six community service workers and 1 supervising community service worker. So total 7.
And the one that you said, the loss in service to customers, what division was that one out of?
Community Assistance Division.
And what specifically do they do?
This is the Inspector, Urban Rehab Inspector 2. These help with our loan programs.
Loans.
So this one specific, they help, because we have low-income folks looking to rehab their homes. They don't always have the ability to articulate the kind of improvements that they're looking for, scope the work, identify the types of work, and make sure they get a good price. This inspector helps them.
So you already have someone in that position?
I have 2 positions in that area. I have the individual right now, he's on workers' comp in and out. So in order to make sure I have stable services in there, I am looking to fill that position.
Oh, so it's not filled right now? The one that you're trying to fill
Currently
for just
vacant,
in case?
correct.
Okay, all right, got it. And then the Work Hawaii one is good for you, right? These guys help me a lot, so I just want to make sure that that line item is correct for you. Page 42.
Correct. On that one, those are existing workers that we had working under the, that help administer the program, so they're admin support to the program itself. So we do need those workers and those positions to help us sustain those services.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you, Deputy. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Kiana.
Thank you. Deputy Director, as you know, in a previous hearing with regard to the Grants and Aid Program, I had talked about the potential decrease from the current funding of $150,000 to potentially $125,000 or $100,000. I just wanted to know your thoughts. I wanted to know your thoughts as we as I work on my FD1 amendments.
Relative to the ceiling reduction from 150,000 to 100,000, the staff did run the numbers. I think we do see about 40 new grants coming on board with that ceiling reduction. If we do proceed with that route, I will need at least 1 more staff to help manage those grants, because the additional 40 is like almost like a 25, I think it's a 25% increase to our workload just with that one move. So I will need another 1 staff person. If you need help with that number, we can provide that to you. Other than that, we did take a look at the grantees that would be added in that situation, and doesn't look like any of them receive federal funds currently based on their financial statements and other submissions that they have. So if you're looking to impact or trying to shore up losses for folks that receive federal funds, we did not see that with the ceiling lowering from $150,000 to $100,000.
Okay, so can I ask, do you care if it's 125 or 100? Because of course, with 125, then it would be fewer nonprofit organizations. So I guess overall, I understand the need for an additional staffer. Do you see that happening if it was decreased only to 125?
I'd have to rerun the numbers, but I anticipate the answer is yes. The reason why is because that 0.5% of real property taxes kind of keep inching up every year. So I think, we are always heading to a point where maybe not, if not this year, next year, coming in and asking for an expansion of that, just because as real property taxes goes up, or not just by property valuation, we're seeing that 0.5% grow.
Thank you so much for your answer. So what I'm getting from the ground is that although people would like to see 150,000 because there is such a need, if we can increase it by 40 more grantees, then it's better overall for the program. Thank you so much. And I will be signing off, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Duly noted. Thanks for tuning in and participating. Okay, members, any other questions for community services? Okay, seeing none, we will continue on now. It's Parks Department, starting at the bottom of page 44, Urban Forestry. We're proposing to restore funding within urban forestry. On page 45, we're proposing adding some current expenses for repaving of the Nu'uanu Valley Park parking lot, as well as the park and garden improvements that were proposed would be moved into the capital side at the bottom of page 45. That's a total of $2.5 million across all 9 of our districts. That's $277,000 per district. On page 46, this is Hanauma Bay funding, adding funding for these. And again, this is out of, you'll see the fund code HN out of the Hanauma Bay Fund. On page 47 and 48, this is for Councilmember Cordero's district. We're splitting up her proposal into 2 amendments and accepting them. At the bottom of page 48, removing obsolete structures at Ala Park, and then the cattle gate at Kalani Anaole Beach Park is going to be in current expenses rather than in CIP because it's such a small amount. Page 49 is more Hanauma Bay activities. And then on page 50, we're going to pause on page 50 because I have a note on page 50. Page 50 would restore funding for of $108,000 for grounds maintenance. And on page 50, members, I distributed a 8.5 by 11 sheet. This sheet proposes adding a position for salaries and adding a proviso that states, and it reads on the paper as, at least $63,096 shall be appropriated for a permanent recreation specialist position 2 position for an Adopt a Park coordinator to provide field and technical support for AAP activities. Members, what I'd like to do is accept this hand-carried 8.5 by 11 sheet, but make one change, and that change is to eliminate the word permanent in the description. So it would just say for a recreation specialist position 2. And so at this time, maybe we can turn it over to Director Thielen for comments on that, as well as just overall comments.
Thank you very much, Chair Dos Santos Tam, members of the Budget Committee. Laura Thielen on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation Director. First of all, I just want to thank you very much for the restoration of the 3 positions. The Duff position on page 45 and the 2 grounds maintenance positions on page 50. We appreciate that very much. I'm not familiar with the language, so I don't know if the language that is in these 3 restorations where it says but delete position count is also the same language that needs that housekeeping correction that was mentioned in ENV. So, okay, thank you. We did want to raise an issue on an item on page 45. Under the maintenance support services, it is talking about accepting the change with the proviso, but to move $2.5 million to the capital improvement budget for CIP. The concern we have, and I hope it is a clerical error, is that if you also look on page 55, the provision for mitigation of visitor impacts on page 55 under the miscellaneous category is $2.5 million. That item, the provision for mitigation of visitor impacts, is the $2.5 million from the TAT that was going to be utilized for basically the council members' allowances for the MSS work. The language there on page 55 says to accept that 2.5 million reduction, and so that it would be reduced, but it's not moved to the MSS budget. It just, in the language that's on the proposed CD2, it just reduces the 2.5 million. If that 2.5 million is not including language to move it to the MSS budget, then the language on page 45 is basically taking essentially 100% or close to 100% of the MSS current expenses base budget and moving that out. So we were concerned about where that 2.5 million would be coming from, because it would leave MSS with about $200,000 total for all current expenses, all supplies, all equipment, all purchases, let alone the work program. So that would be the first concern, is that to make sure that miscellaneous provision for mitigation of visitor impact, 2.5 million on page 55, if it's reduced from the miscellaneous activity, it also has language in the CD1, CD2 to move it over to MSS, if that makes sense.
Noted. We'll look into that. I remember discussing this a little bit.
Okay. And I sent an email over this morning too, because we just noticed it. The second concern that we want to raise about this is if that 2.5 million is moved from provision of mitigation of visitor impacts from miscellaneous over to MSS, we would ask that the council not move this fund over to CIP. The reason being, the type of work that we have been doing with council members under that allowance through MSS, those jobs do not qualify for capital improvement project budgets. And BFS's concern repeatedly has been, they can't take money, albeit cash, in the CIP budget and put it towards non-CIP type expenditures because of the bond council scrutiny of how the CIP budget is utilized. So we'd ask to keep this in the operational budget, where MSS can clearly, take advantage of the master agreements that we have to be doing the operating budget type of heavy work, which can be fairly significant work, as you guys all know, that we've done in your districts. So those are the two requests. One is to make sure it's clear that the 2.5 million in the miscellaneous activity is not just eliminated, but it's also moved over to the MSS current expenses. And then the second is that the floor draft not move the 2.5 million into the CIP budget.
Okay, members, any questions, starting with Floor Leader Cordero?
Thank you, Director. First off, my intent when I was making those movements was to keep it in the operating budget, so I would like for the rest of my colleagues to consider keeping it in the operating as well. Next, I do have a question relating to electrician positions. I know I normally don't like adding positions. I really don't, but I know that because we are trying to streamline funding to towards either maintenance support services or with a master agreement, I was wondering, and the need for the different lights, especially in my district where a lot of the stuff is just getting stolen over and over and over again. Would love to not stack, but equip maintenance support services with electrician positions that would support the work that's already being ushered forward by that team.
Thank you, Councilwoman, and thank you very much for the thought. And we agree with you that I think it's a good conversation to start at the city about the type of work that MSS does. My understanding is back in about 2006, two electrician positions were transferred from MSS into DFM. And I think that it was partly due to some issues under their professional licensing requirements about who supervises them. Now, so since that time, DFM, we've turned to DFM, our sister agency, to handle the electrical work for parks, and we do have significant electrical work. What I think we need to do is we need to go back and look at two things. One is, if we're going to place electrical work back in DPR, what type of positions do we need under the professional requirements for electricians to be able to manage those positions? And then the second question would be is, I don't know the current work to be able to quantify the amount of work that's being done by DFM Electrical Department for parks versus other areas. What would be needed in order to be able to return that type of work to parks? Because it may have increased from that time when we transferred two positions. And so I think we need to quantify that and have that discussion with our sister agency and the administration. We would like to be able to have those conversations over the course of this next fiscal year, and then to be able to come back to you with a more thoughtful approach to MSS about what would be right sizing it now that we've turned it back into a division. But I think it may be premature at this point to just put the two positions in. We don't want to have a situation where we can't supervise them appropriately and it re-raises that labor issue. And we certainly don't want a situation where DFM is like, oh, great, you got positions, okay, you're on your own. And we're not ready to take that with, with two positions. So we just want to make sure that we can do it more thoughtfully and with your support to give us the year to have the conversation.
Okay, thank you. Really quick, when was the transfer made to DFM?
I believe it was in 2006 is what we were tracking it back to by memo, but I'm not 100% positive.
Okay, thank you very much. And I would like to correct myself. The 277,000 was not my amendment. I do want to note that I did have an amendment that added it to the CIP, but in cash only, because I added cameras and or parks projects for each council district instead. So just wanted to note that I'm correcting myself and I stand corrected. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, Chair Waters.
Thank you. Just curious, based on what the director's talking about, where did the 2.5 million go? Did it go into CIP?
Yes. So we proposed moving the 2.5 million into CIP. Based on this discussion, I'm sure this is something that we can pick up in the FD1.
Was it with mine?
No, okay. So it was mine. There was a duplicate amendment. Both of them, it was the same amount, both dealing with parks, but one was tagged as, mine was tagged as provision for mitigation of visitor impacts, and yours was just on the current expense side. So I think that's what this confusion stems from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. And we also appreciate the discussion you raised on the floor draft. I would like to raise a quick question with the DHR. I believe the term permanent just for the civil service positions, it just defines, which are permanent, which are temporary. We do have the salary funding for the position in our salaries, but because we do not have the civil service position for the adopted park, it's currently a contract position only. The challenge we're having is we've done a tremendous amount of external recruitment for contract people, and they're not interested, but we do have some civil service staff that would be interested in applying, but they're not willing to lose their civil service status and apply for a contract position. So we just would want the language to be consistent with other contract positions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, members, any other questions for Parks Department? All right, one last thing for Parks on page 51. This is $200,000 for equipment at Hanama Bay to replace utility carts. That's the top of page 51. And that concludes the DPR budget portion here. On to the bottom of page 51. This is enterprise services. There are two items, one at the bottom of page 51. This would delete the proviso that $300,000 be appropriated for the Blaisdell Arena basketball court. As a note, I was a little disappointed to learn about the condition of the basketball court, and noting that a number of students do their activities there. I hope we can come up with a solution for that. but I recognize based on conversations we had that it's not likely to happen next year, even if we were to give them money. I see we have Tracy Kubota here, and while she's coming up here, there is also a cut of $50,000 at the top of page 52 from the administration portion of DES's budget. This is reversing an addition that was made in the CD1.
Good afternoon, Budget Chair, Council Members, Tracy Kubota, Department of Enterprise Services, Deputy Director. Yes, you are correct about the floor. We do not have any objections to the existing amendments that you have recommended, but we will work on possible options to be able to address your concerns.
Yeah, thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
On to DTS. Starting at the bottom of page 52, we are amending a proviso that was added in the CD1 by Councilmember Kiaina. We're just making a small wording addition to allow them a little bit more flexibility to put up program expenses. I'll note that we have Director Morton on Zoom here, but before we get to him, why don't we walk through some of these other things? So that's at the bottom of page 52. On page 53, this is changing the description and object code for $76,500 associated with the opening of phase 2 of rail. That's what page 53 is for. And then at page 54, at the top of page 54, this is a proposal for $10,000 for security upgrades such as cameras to the Hawaii Kai Park and Ride. This is $10,000 within DTS that we're proposing to add in. This was originally put into the CIP side, but because it's such a small amount, we thought it just made sense to put back in on the operating side. We do have the director here. Any comments? Director Morton.
No comments. I think on the first item, the 500,000, we just wanted to verify that the ad included adding expenditure amount to the fund code rather than just provisoing the 500,000 for implementation. On the speed zone, as I previously suggested, that we would be happy if we committed to putting in a speed zone in each of the council districts, one during the next fiscal year, while we planned a bigger program for the next years. So would not be opposed to deferring the funding here at all. And as I say, for us, the next year, I think would be a good time to do it. But if the council does add the money, we'd want to make sure that we're not taking it out of other important programs that we have. For the 76,500, that was switched from our multimodal to our rail side, and to just kind of flesh out that it wasn't all food that we were buying, but it was services. It was wraparound services for our October 1st opening of Skyline, and for the security camera in Hawaii Kai. Again, not opposed to it, but we think that a single security camera there would probably be a little bit ineffective, and we don't really have the resources to have anybody monitor it. It is kind of remote, so those are our comments for the three items anyway.
Okay,
Happy to answer any questions.
Members, any questions? To the point about the $500,000, so we added $500,000 in the CD1. This is just changing the proviso from the CD1, so there's no dollar amount change from the original 500 that was added. And I'm sure we would all welcome different types of traffic safety programs happening in our districts. I see Councilmember Cordero nodding. I'm sure she has places in mind already. Okay. If there's no further questions for DTS, we'll move on to the bottom of page 54. This is miscellaneous. These are There's a few miscellaneous things on page 54, 55, and the top of page 56. This is reducing funding for the provision of homeless shelter, respite, and outreach services within DCS. On page 55, at the top of page 55, this is a proviso from Councilmember Nishimoto to prioritize shelter bed capacity in the primary urban center area. On page 55, this is the $250,000 for the provision for mitigation of visitor impacts. This was the thing that we spent a little bit of time talking with Director Thielen about, and we will iron out for the FD1. And then provision for sewer fees. This is because we made the changes on the salary and other operating sides, we didn't need to make this change on the general fund side because we've made them on the sewer fund side. And then at the bottom, page 55, because we passed Bill 2, which extinguishes the leasehold conversion fund, we are providing an amended amount to reflect the correct amount that's in the fund right now. That's at the bottom, page 55. Top of page 56, this is an additional $150,000 into the Transit Construction Mitigation Fund. So that's it for the non-proviso items. Any questions on those? Okay, we're almost done. Page 56 and 57, and pages 56 through page 60 is a number of provisos to change the amounts that were reflected in the detailed statement of revenues and surplus that the administration submits to us at the beginning of the budget process. So what this basically does is this reflects the correct amounts. For example, starting on the bottom of page 56, this reflects the correct amounts of GET surcharge and TAT that's to be deposited into the general fund. At the bottom, page 56, again, this corrects the amount that's going to be transferred out of the leasehold conversion fund since we're getting rid of that. On page 57, this increases a number of revenue line items as the administration expects to have some more revenue starting on January 1st from these different items. Same thing on page 58. Same thing on page 59 is starting with the transit fund. This is related to the HART budgets that we're going to be coming up on this agenda a little bit later, but this is to do the correct amount of OTAT interest revenues, general fund transfers from the general excise tax, as well as the general obligation bond issuance to make sure that everything matches up. And then on page 60, this deals further with HART and also with the federal grants fund, the correct amounts for the FFGA drawdown. That's the $125,000 there. And so these are all proviso amounts from pages 56 to 60. Any questions on these? These are mostly technical changes that we need to just make so everything balances. And as you recall, we even had to balance it down to the single dollar, which is why there was a single dollar on one of the earlier pages. All right, last thing before we get out of Bill 22. At the end of your packet, there's a number of provisos. We can walk through the provisos on page 1. This makes definition changes in section 12A. In section 12B, this makes technical amendments, section 12C and 12D. Well, section 12C is a technical change. Section 12D, the important thing here is that the council members needed to be notified of the various expenditures when they're made out of federal or state grants or private grants. On section 12E, this is a technical drafting change to make it italics. Section 12F is a technical change. Onto page 6, sections 12I and 12J are technical changes. Section 12L is a proviso for if there are additional GET amounts, the excess goes into the general fund and then goes into the transit fund, and we as the council get a notification within 14 days of the transfer. I'll note that in section 12L, there is a typo, and it should say in the third to last line, it should say within 14 days of the transfer, not with 14 days of the transfer. That's a pretty minor one. And then section 12M, technical changes, 12N, technical changes. Also in 12N, this is to provide that if there ends up being more money in the leasehold conversion fund that which we're extinguishing, it'll go back into the general fund. 12M clarifies that these funds just go in. 12M, we are not going to accept, and we're going to pick it up in the FD1 if it becomes necessary to transfer further general fund monies into the sewer fund. Okay, so that's the section 12 provisos. Most of them are technical, but I walked through the ones that have substantive changes from the CD1. And then section 13, this picks up on page 7. Section 13A, B, both of which are technical in nature. On page 9, section 14 is fairly technical. This puts in the correct references to the departmental communications and other communications for this year, as well as the exhibits and appendices on page 10. Now, here's the interesting part. Here is where things get interesting for those of you, which is like nobody, but here we are, who are very nerdy about the budget. Bottom of page 10, section 16, we're proposing a new proviso, section 16, that requires that next year, when the mayor submits the budget for next year, we get a detailed report detailing the incentive payments for each department. We're proposing on the following page, we originally proposed a new section 18, a new section 19. These were going to be additional reports for the Department of Budget and Fiscal Services to detail how much money they're lapsing and where. This would create a lot of reporting requirements. So we said to the department, okay, we don't need to have all of these reports, but we expect a little bit more communication on the lapses because certain departments do have large amounts of lapses that they use, that they either don't use or transfer over. And then in section 19, we're also proposing to reject this new proviso that I authored, which was that if they are using salary savings above $500,000 to fund a different activity, that we be notified when that happens. And that would also create a lot of reporting requirements. But this gets to a point that we've made consistently throughout this budget process, that the salary savings, we would like to know exactly what is actually needed for the budget and what we're just using as buffer to move things around. So we're going to see how well this does this year, and next year, if we continue to see these large salary vacancy monies being moved around, we have prepared this proviso that can be added to next year's budget. And then section 20, the new section 20 on the last page, this would require a monthly report at the end of each month. That's a little bit easier than what was being proposed in section 19 for salary savings and current vacancies and how they plan to use all of these savings. And then a new section 17, which corresponds to Bill 36, which we anticipate passing, so we put it into the CD2 just so we wouldn't have to do amendments on the fly on June 4th. And then I suppose the new section 18, the very last one, is fairly important because it should take effect July 1st, 2025. Okay, this is it for Bill 22, members, and it is 12:15. We made it through fairly quickly. Questions and discussion. Councilmember, Floor Leader Cordero, and then Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you. So would you be able to explain the difference on page 7 of the provisos? One is rejected and one is accepted. I mean, there's 2 accepted for
okay.
subsection M.
Yes, so the third row, the proposed section M, this originally would have directed that general monies may be transferred into the sewer fund for FY26 only. Because this budget doesn't have any direct transfers, this proviso wasn't necessary for the CD2. If in the FD1 there is there are monies proposed out of the general funds to be directly transferred into the general fund side, we can add back a proviso, but because we're not doing a direct transfer in this CD2, this proviso wasn't necessary.
Thank you.
Chair, I had a question.
Yes.
On page, the part that you noted was exciting.
Yes.
Thank you. That's where I got excited and the highlighter came out. So specifically with this recruitment and retention one, what is your hopes for having a report for that? And are we thinking that there's multiple departments that do recruitment and retention bonuses?
Yes, so there are multiple departments that do these, and I thought it would be important to codify that we have this report. So it's not just HPD. Obviously, we focus a lot on HPD's retention recruitment, but for the highly skilled and highly technical positions like engineers, we often provide recruitment so they don't run off to work for the private sector. And I thought it was important for us to know this. I also think it's important for as we reclassify positions to know if we're giving them $20,000, we should just raise their salary by $20,000 to keep them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then for the Section 18, thanks for mentioning that we could bring it back, because I do think that the amount of lapses, I'm not saying that it's only during budget season, but it seems like when budget season comes around, that's when we're worried, that's when we're looking. But with a one-year budget, we have to be looking every quarter, maybe even monthly. So especially when we're exceeding millions, 5 million seems reasonable, but many have lapsed much more than 5 million without them being aware of it. And then of course, without us being aware of it. So although it's rejected this time, and then I do see that, in Section 20, there's a little bit of like, okay, we'll know if the savings that was generated comes back. These are really important because I've brought up numerous times that the stored property ordinance efforts that the city does is in nobody's budget. It's always just whatever vacant funds we don't have. Nobody specifically has a line item for SPOs. So I'm worried about it because I do think that everyone in this county benefits from it, but we don't even have a specific fund for it. So if we don't lapse some of these funds, then they don't have money to use. So I think this, knowing what salary savings are being used for what, could help us to delineate the budget items more clearly. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Chair Waters.
Thank you so much. I'm just looking at the new Section 17. In the event that the expenditure of monies in the Reserve Fiscal Stability Fund is deemed necessary by the mayor pursuant to ROH Section 6-5623C, such monies are appropriate in the amounts determined to be necessary by the mayor in written notice and may be expended without further authorization of the council. So basically, we're saying that, basically we have no oversight over how these monies are spent. A little concerned about that.
No, correct. I believe that this is a standard provision. Let me check. Okay, so this is how it's written as of right now in Bill 36. So we took the language from Bill 36. If Bill 36 changes between now and June 4th, we will need to make corresponding changes to the budget here. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, that's a good flag and a good explanation for the public as we start discussing Bill 36 at our May 27th meeting. All right. Any other questions here? Vice Chair Wire.
I just wanted to say mahalo to you and your staff for working so diligently on this, and just appreciate all the work that's gone into it, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right, we have one last thing that was flagged to me. On page 7 of the provisos, at the top, section 12N, the very first line, notwithstanding ROH section 43-8.2, ... the decision should actually say reject for the same reason that I articulated to Councilmember Cordero, that this CD2 doesn't do a direct transfer of general funds into sewer funds, and thus this proviso is also not necessary. So that was a good flag by the OCS staff.
Yeah, so that, sorry.
Yes, Floor Leader Cordero.
Yeah, yes, Chair. That's why I was wondering why one was
Yes.
rejected and one wasn't.
No, thank you, and that's a good flag. So it should be both section
rejected
12N at the top of page 7, and then the proposed section 12M in the middle of page 7.
Okay, and then if there was a transfer in FD1, then we can add this.
Then
this
it has to be added
section.
back in.
Okay. Understood. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. That being it for Bill 22, I see we have two of the testifiers that weren't here earlier. I'm going to do them courtesy of allowing them to testify. On here we have Frank Doyle, who signed up first. We'll have Frank, and then if Rick Egid, I don't see Rick, but if he's around, and then Natalie Iwasa.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the council. My name is Frank Doyle. I'm a member of a group of scientists and engineers that are looking to reinstate the waiver that we had originally at our Sand Island sewage treatment plant. That waiver allowed us not to go forward with secondary treatment. Our group also supports Council Resolution 287. And to that end, we have initiated a letter to the EPA Municipal Ombudsman, and they have received it, they've acknowledged it, and they said they would be getting it back to us shortly. What we really want to know is, how do we go about with them to identify what needs to be done to reinstate the waiver? You know, as you know, the cost of Sand Island is $2.5 billion. This is a large amount of money, and we're contemplating other things besides this as we move through the next fiscal year, landfill as well as stormwater fees. Don't know where it's all coming from, but appreciate maybe stopping the expenditure of secondary treatment funds at Sand Island. Thank you.
Thank you. I see some questions. Councilmember Tupola.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Doyle, for waiting this whole time and for, participating civically in this process. I will say that I agree with you. I did bring it up to Director Babcock, the need for us to bring up, a possible amendment. It could be an integrated plan to the EPA, specifically because the city is investing in quite a bit of cesspool conversions. In fact, the Eva cesspool district is going to be 1,000 cesspools offline that the city is going to pay for to hook up into the septic system. And that's actually a huge amount of clean water efforts that we're putting towards trying to make sure that there isn't anything contaminating waters that are nearby. So I think our efforts have been valid. I want to say that many of these haven't been articulated to the EPA recently. This could put us in a better spot to maybe not get a waiver, but maybe get an exemption or whatever is necessary. So just know that I'm tracking with what you're talking about. And I think many of us are concerned that asking for an increase in the sewer rate fees is too high. And therefore, what can we do to bring down the cost? So thank you for all of your work and your background.
Thank you. The integrated planning mechanism does provide for us to prioritize what we need in our community with respect to water, stormwater, and wastewater. And I think when we look at prioritizing things, spending money, spending $2.5 billion for something that really doesn't make significant improvements, either in the environment or in public works or in public health, rather, that this money could well be used for the cesspool as well as many other things.
Understood. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Members, any other questions for Mr. Doyle? Okay, seeing none. Natalie Iwasa.
Thank you, Chair. Council members, Natalie Iwasa for the records. So I submitted written testimony in opposition, but I would like to change that now. Given that, thank you so much that you have removed the 16 million, and there was also a proposed amendment to increase it. So I'm really happy to see that because I was very concerned about using the general funds for the sewer work. Just a couple other comments. The $10,000 security camera for Hawaii Kai, I oppose actually security cameras in all of our parks, and I pointed out a really very good book that I've been reading. I have nothing to hide, so that's where the basis of my opposition comes from. And one more comment, the amendment to move the Cocoa Head Stables repair work, $250,000. So it's not real clear to me. I may have missed something in the discussion, but just want to caution you folks about putting repair stuff in the CIP budget. Those are my comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none. And Angela, you already testified on Bill 22. So,
okay.
thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who hasn't already testified on Bill 22? I see we have Director Kawano.
Thank you, Budget Chair. Andy Kawano, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. Just wanted to comment on Section 17 on page 12. Oh, wait, wrong one. Okay, Section 20 on page 12. It says, the Director of Budget and Fiscal Services shall submit a monthly report to the City Council on the last day of each month detailing all salary savings generated from vacant positions for each department, and so on. And then number two, a complete itemization of such savings that have been utilized, including specific expenditures by activity and program, justification for each expenditure's necessity, and remaining unallocated balance. I think preparing a report monthly, especially early in the fiscal year, is futile because many things can happen during the year that would require for, let's say, a public safety department overtime that wasn't anticipated. There are vacations that have to be paid out. There are, we have hazard pay that has to be paid out, and there's a component for some of the unions that have settled to pay out additional vacation hours. So I would caution council members on accepting such a provision. Let's see how we do this year, and if you feel that we need to do more reporting, especially monthly, let's work on something together during the year, because it's going to create work that takes away from all of the important stuff we have to work on that are currently constrained by capacity. Thank you.
Okay, members.
One more thing, I'm sorry, Budget Chair. On page 5, we have that settlement amount for $1.8 million to be paid through CSD. And
of the original worksheets, not the provisos. Yes.
Yeah, the original worksheet. Thank you so much. And the 1.8 million is a conglomeration of invoices from the past that have to be paid out through a settlement process that probably include HPD tolls. So the proviso restricting the tolls to what CSD would do for abandoned and derelict vehicles would restrict the ability to fully pay the settlement amount. So I just wanted to point that out. That one should be, flexible so that we can complete the settlement process. And that's it. Thanks.
Okay, Floor Leader Cordero.
Thank you. Director Kawano, regarding the settlement, is that the full amount, or is there going to be a balance still remaining?
That should cover and move us forward into the new fiscal year. That should cover all the past invoices.
Okay, and into the new fiscal year, are we then is there going to be a balance from this year as well? Meaning we're paying all the past invoices out, then we may be leaving out paying for our current fiscal year. Is that going to happen?
I don't have, the final cutoff. There may be small amounts that, don't make year end that carry over, but nothing close to $1.8 million.
Understood. Okay, I was just wondering if it needed to be increased by 100,000. And if not, it's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any other questions? Director, do you have alternative language for the proviso for the $1.8 million for towing?
We would prefer if we relate it to the settlement process in general and not, specifically relate the types of invoices that can be paid. So we'll come back to you with wording. The other option is to remove the proviso.
Okay. So if it's in Object Code 3042 towing services, it can also be applied for HPD?
Well, yes, because currently CSD administers the towing program for both CSD and HPD. And because the invoices relate to the past, yes.
Okay. And then, members, any other questions for Director Kawano? Florida Cordero.
Thank you. For each department, like for example, this will be a settlement, meaning it could have come from judgments and losses, right?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. That's more of a legal question.
No, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I was just going to ask how much can HPD and CSD and every single department then offer so that we don't have to keep taking from our judgments and losses provision account? That's all. But since it's not, and there may be restrictions, I will not ask that.
All right. Thank you. Members, any other questions for Director Kawano? If not, I have a question for Director Hashiro. And as she comes up here, the question is, if we were to remove this proviso, but keep the $1.8 million for Object Code 3042 towing services, would you be okay with that?
Yes, what we'd like to be able to do is just have flexibility to pay all towing invoices. So regardless of the type of towing invoice.
Okay. So knowing that, members, based on the discussion we just had, I'm going to propose removing the proviso but keeping. Okay. Seeing no further discussion on Bill 22, we've had pretty robust discussion. The chair recommends that Bill 22 of 2025, CD1, be amended to a CD2 that incorporates the changes described during the discussion today, such as, but not limited to, the adopt a park language that was on the hand-carried 8.5 by 11 sheet, correcting the typo in Proviso 12L, taking out the proviso relating to the $1.8 million of towing that we just discussed, and also rejecting the proposed Proviso 12M on page 7, since we're not making the sewer fund transfers in this CD2. And further, makes any technical and non-substantive amendments that may be necessary, and any changes to transfers between funds that are necessary to balance revenues and appropriations in each fund. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Seeing none, the bill has been amended to a CD2. The chair then recommends that Bill 22 of 2025, CD2, be reported out for passage on third reading. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Members, it's 12:34 p.m. right now. We can dive into Bill 23 capital budget if you'd like, or we can take a short break and come back after lunch. What would you like to do?
I'll defer. I'm completely happy to power through.
Okay, let's try to power through.
Power through.
Okay, great.
Okay,
let's power through. I'd like to take testimony up front. So with regard to Bill 23, we have two registered testifiers. We have Richard Tagore Irwin and Natalie Iwasa. Okay, I don't see Irwin, but I see Natalie Iwasa, so we'll start with Natalie Iwasa here. I'll also note that we do have a remote testifier ending in 077 that we'll get to after the in-person testimony. So Ms. Iwasa, please proceed.
Thank you, Natalie Wassa, for the record. Just some comments. First of all, the $2.1 million safety improvements to Cocoa Head Shooting Complex, I wholeheartedly support. I mean, they've been trying to get stuff done up there for a long time. And then there's $950,000 for Cocoa Head District Park. It's worked fine the way it is for years. And then, you know, every time we pave over something, we have to repair it later. And what happens to that asphalt when they do that? It goes to the landfill. So the less that we need to pave, the less we put in the landfill later on. Those are my comments. Thank you.
All right, members, any questions? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone else here in the chamber who'd like to testify? Please line up behind Angela Melody Young. Please proceed.
Thank you. I didn't know what the pattern was for testifying because sometimes you like to do it in the beginning.
I know. We're doing the beginning now.
Okay, all right. So I want to talk about the Aloha Stadium, no line item for it. And the Aloha Stadium in the state budget is listed as the new Aloha Stadium Entertainment District. It has $50 million appropriations from the state. As a community advocate, my evaluation of public works and the use of taxpayer dollars to advocate for the entertainment facilities and the future of what will be anticipated as a major transit-oriented development, I think it's appropriate for the council to consider funding for the Aloha Stadium. This executive capital budget talks about special facilities, Blaisdell Center redevelopment, enterprise facilities, design and constructing resilient improvement facilities for contracts to show internationally famous acts to elevate the arts, music, and filmmakers industry. This brings money to Hawaii and is in alignment with University of Hawaii's plans for students in filmmaking and music and design, which, if you think about that, the transit corridor connects all the schools. So a few could say this is a state issue, but the office that administers the congressionally funded act, Inflation Reduction Act, is from the county's Office of Climate and Resiliency. The funds for the act reduces and lowers electrical rates for buildings consuming higher amounts of electrical power. So something the most expensive and the most consuming of electrical resources is perhaps an entertainment sports stadium, playing music loudly, special effects, lighting, stage equipment. So I think it should be a line item from the city.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay. I actually do have a question. On page 11 of the capital budget, we are proposing a feral cat sanctuary. Is this something that is, okay, I'll see that reaction and I'll count that as a yes. All right, thank you. I figured. All right. With that, is there anyone else who'd like to testify here in the chambers? Okay, seeing none, we will turn to the phones. Phone number ending in 077, if you can unmute, and please proceed. And I believe unmuting is press *6. Yes, okay, now you're unmuted. Please proceed.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me in this opportunity. My name is Amanda Kirby, and I'm speaking in favor of the added project for the Makiki Community Garden on page 14 of the capital budget. We thank the Councilmember Nishimoto for adding this project. The funding will allow the completion of the community garden fence, which has been on the Park Master Plan since 1999. This fence will help protect the gardens of 150 households of urban Honolulu. Current theft, drug use, vandalism, improper use of water faucets, and human waste in the garden have made the space unsafe and difficult to garden in. The garden has privately paid for Makiki Street faucets to be locked, leaving the other faucets less than 30 feet away open at the Makiki Street parking lot. But the faucet locks that we have privately put in have been broken over 5 times in the first month of installation. HPD is aware, and the responding cops believe if this would help, but we have, and we also have an approved motion by the Makiki Neighborhood Board for the fence. We believe this fence will protect community space while allowing access for the permitted persons who pay an annual fee for this garden. We believe this is an appropriate budget item for the capital budget, as it is a one-time cost and that fences are often built through a city contractor. We see this in previous years, like the fence for Dr. Sun Yat-sen Memorial Parks in the fiscal year of 2025. Again, as a vice president for Makiki Community Garden, I have 150 gardeners and households behind me. We really would love the opportunity for this fence to be built. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions for Ms. Kirby? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone else standing by to testify online?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, there being none, members, why don't we dive into the worksheet? Again, the worksheet is Council Communication 142. Starting on page 1. This is for DPR. We are going to consolidate the specific vehicles into a more general description. That's the budget chair's recommendation. This is the second to last column on the right. That's kind of the most interesting thing to be looking at as we go through these worksheets. For the project adjustments account, bottom page 1, we are proposing to restore that and add in placeholders. This is a fund that if they need additional funds for a project, or if there's a project comes up a little bit, the money is a little bit short, they can put that into this fund. So it's basically a bridge between projects. We're just putting in a placeholder to allow the administration a little bit of flexibility. On page 2, we are proposing, as you'll see, the feral cat sanctuary. We're accepting the Halava Aloha Stadium TOD, but we're moving it to the Human Services function and DHLM function on page 10, so that's where you're going to see that. For Waianae Neighborhood Community Center security improvements, we're accepting the language change, but keeping the same funds, so it can be a security improvement there. At the bottom of page 2, we're also proposing an additional $200,000 total for incidental land expenses under DDC. Any questions on pages 1 or 2? Councilmember Tupola.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm appreciative of the Feral Cat Sanctuary. As you know, during the land use bill, we discussed it a lot. We definitely need this in regards to trying to get a hold of our feral animal situation. I just wanted to make mention of the Waianae Neighborhood Community Center. This is the Waianae DMV. So even though we have the DMV there, it's actually not run by CSD. And so there's various problems that we have there, from people vandalizing it to breaking in. So this is very necessary, and I just want to thank you on behalf of my community, because actually we're currently having our neighborhood board in that building, and so a lot of people get to see how badly kept the building is. So we need to give it a lot more love, and we think it's going to start with trying to provide some security. Thank you, Chair.
Great. All right, members, any other questions on pages 1 and 2? Okay, page 3, this is for HPD. We are, as you'll see, providing funds for their headquarters, but we are deleting the project for patrol vehicles out of CIP, and as Chief Logan mentioned, I'm proposing a total of $5 million for patrol vehicles in the operating side. We can continue to have a discussion of whether it's 50 vehicles or 63 vehicles that would be appropriate in the next fiscal year, but we are moving it back to the operating side. At the bottom of page 3, this was for Councilmember Tolba in his district. This was his ad. As it turns out, the department plans to do this anyway, so we don't need it as a specific item in next year's budget. On page 4, we are going to be accepting the recommendations for these traffic engineering devices that came from Councilmember Cordero as well as Councilmember Okimoto for traffic engineering devices. And then at the bottom of page 4, this is Councilmember Tupola out in Kapolei. The department plans to already do this, which is very, very good news for the Kapolei community at this very busy intersection. Any questions on pages 3 and 4? Okay, on to page 5. We're making a change to the description and phasing for the Kapalama Channel emergency wall repairs, and proposing $450,000 for the Waianae Fire Department Road and Lifeguard Station Security Gate, and moving it from Culture and Recreation to Design and Construction. Any questions on page 5? Okay, page 6, this is Highways and Streets. I'll note that Councilmember Kiaina put in a request for $20 million for affordable housing infrastructure improvements. We are changing the proviso slightly, so it says with priority for sites identified by the City Council for housing development. And then for Councilmember Okimoto, Pacific Palisades Road is there on page 6. And then rehabilitation of streets, we are changing the proviso slightly. And that is that on page 6. On to page 7, as discussed on the operating side, we're taking the Kaka'ako resurfacing out of the CIP side into operating. For Tantalus Drive, we're putting in a proviso for the various phasing of this project. This is something that I know the state has been very interested in, including former council member and now State Senator Kaoru Fukunaga, as well as the entire Tantalus community. In the middle of page 7, we are restoring a placeholder into the utility share expenses fund. And then at the bottom of page 7, Kaka'ako sidewalk improvements and a proviso for $75,000 of pedestrian walkways on Judge Street, which is in Laliha. Any questions on pages 6 and 7? Page 8. This bridge, we're adding in a proviso and additional funds for the Ahihi Street footbridge, which is in Kalihi Valley. This footbridge collapsed and is unsafe, and so we're putting in funding to allow that to be reconstructed. For Limu Place, this is out in East Honolulu. I understand that the improvements here are underway already, so we're taking that out. And then the catch basins in the Ala Moana area, we're accepting this at $3.01 million. Any questions through page 8? Okay, page 9. Page 9, Chinatown bathrooms. One of my favorite / least favorite topics. Any questions? Page 10. Page 10, this is a language change only for the Waikiki Vista to say including but not limited to the Waikiki Vista. I think it's putting in a comma. The proviso for increased shelter bed capacity in the urban core is moved to the executive operating budget. We're accepting that. That's from Councilmember Nishimoto, and I think this will be very helpful for everybody in the primary urban core area. And then at the bottom here, this is $25 million for TOD in and around the Aloha Stadium area. We're changing the proviso so it says including but not limited to the Aloha Stadium area because some of these improvements may be beneficial to folks outside of the immediate area, and so we wanted to not lock it up by making it too specific. So that's page 10. Page 11. As you'll recall, members, in the CD1, what we asked the departments to do was break out their projects for things like the canoe halau. There are going to be a series of canoe halau. There's going to be a series of comfort station improvements, and that's reflected here on page 11, 11 and 12. Again, Councilmember Tolba, the Siasing Community Park is in here. We've got comfort stations at various parks. We are also adding, for Councilmember Tupola's edification, in this comfort station line, we're including Lualualei Beach Park 2 in this rather than as a separate project. The feral cat note is at the bottom of page 11. And then on page 12, again, Canoe Halau and Kapolei Regional Park, changing the language. Any questions through the end of page 12? All right, page 13. Improvements to Kehi Lagoon Park is in here. There's kind of a long list of things here. We're changing the typo in Cocoa Head District Park for the community center roof there. The riding stables are correcting the title, and then changing the phasing for the Cocoa Head Shooting Complex master plan. That's page 13. Page 14. Various parks around the island, Kualei Cliffs, which is on the slopes of Diamond Head. And members, if you haven't visited that park, there's a community group that's doing really amazing things there. Makiki District Park, Mauna Lua Bay, Mililani Mauka Park, so that'll be very welcome for Councilmember Okimoto's community. And then the Nehu Park, which is in East Honolulu, a new play apparatus there. And then on page 15. Page 15, various improvements for Council District 5, including the off-leash dog parks at Old Stadium Park, Manoa District Park, and Palolo Valley District Park. I'll note that if the department plans to do this, we may need a PIM amendment because dog parks are covered under PIM, but we can deal with that later. And then provision for visitor impacts is here. We will deal with this issue that came up on the operating side. We'll deal with this in the FD1. Play courts at various parks. We're adding Mokuea Mini Park pickleball, Councilmember Cordero. And then out on the Waianae Coast, paving of the dirt road fronting the Pililao Army Recreation Center. Page 16, Pu'ohulu Park, we're changing the description. And then renovating of recreational facilities. There are a number of things here where we are going to be changing and consolidating all of the proviso language to one really big proviso. But this includes things like Ku'uluvela Community Park, which is in my district, but formerly in Councilmember Cordero's district, as well as a number of parks that Councilmember Cordero listed that are priorities for her. Any questions through page 16? All right, page 17, Waianae District Park. We're accepting that. For, as discussed on the operating side, the Waianae Fire Department Road and Lifeguard Station, we're accepting this but moving it to a different function within DDC. And then Waimanalo Beach Park improvements, this is for the recreational building, comfort stations, and pavilion at $500,000. And then the zoo bird facility at the bottom, page 17, this is $370,000. This deals with bird flu and AZA requirements. Okay, last page. Page 18. We're adding in a proviso to say including shelters for uncovered bus stops in Pearl City. This is for Councilmember Okimoto. And then Hawaii Kai Park and Ride, as discussed, that's moved to the operating side. That is it for the packet here. And Peggy, on I don't have the provisos. We're going to walk through the provisos. I'm going to switch with Peggy. Okay, and then walking through the provisos, section 10 on page 1, both of these are pretty standard. On page 2, this is technical. Page 3, again, this is all fairly technical. Page 4, technical changes. Page 5, technical changes. Page 6, technical changes. Page 7. Page 7, section 12, this proposal in the middle of section 12. Right now, the monies may be transferred within the same function if the departments see that it's fit to do so. BFS is required right now to notify us within 30 days. I'm proposing 5 days after the transfer is made. And then also adding in that it applies to the following projects for public safety, flood control, sanitation, sewers, and sanitation, sewage collection, and disposal. At the bottom of page 7, you'll note that this has the same thing. So we're rejecting one but accepting the other at the bottom of page 7. On page 8, this is one that is interesting. Okay, so as we've discussed, not only through this budget cycle, but through a number of budget cycles, what we would like to do is have a report of the specific expenditures made for various projects. And so we're going to have them give us updates on these projects as part of this proviso. This actually may not be the interesting one that I'm thinking of. Oh no, the interesting one is later. Okay, sorry. Any questions thus far? Okay. This is really a lead up to the following couple of pages that actually are interesting. So okay, page 9 is technical changes. Page 10, I'm recommending that we reject the proposed section 15, although I'm not quite sure why that's the case. It's a technical change. We'll take a look at that. We'll have the budget staff take a look at this. That's why. Okay. That's right. Okay, so the rejection on page 10 is because the language is included in the section 15 amendment on page 9. Okay. That's why. Okay, so here's the interesting stuff. So in section 16 at the bottom page 10, what we're doing is we're proposing that if there are funds left over from projects that that have remaining balances afterwards, that they be prioritized for council ads. And we've listed out what all of those are. And so if we're gonna make further changes in the FD1, we should make corresponding changes here. But it's basically saying if there are additional funds elsewhere, that they be dedicated first to these projects as a priority. Then the bottom page 12, technical changes. Page 13. Page 13 at the top, the proposed section 18 would have required pretty extensive reporting from the Budget and Fiscal Services Director about whether capital projects listed in this ordinance have been moved forward or not, because again, we continue to add projects and they never get done. So we're going to reject that for now, but it's drafted. So next year, or perhaps some future budget chair can pick that back up. Middle of page 13, this is going to be amended just on the land expenses side. So what we originally did was we would have required BFS to provide a fairly detailed report on all appropriations, but we're just doing it on the land expenses side. This is a really technical sub-account that the department has, but hasn't appeared to use in a long time. So we just want a little bit more information about what this has been used for, and that's the purpose of this section 18 here. And then at the bottom of page 13, furthermore, on a new section 18, we're gonna accept this and make the amendments in the description side on the right, again, dealing with the land expenses fund, because I'm just not really clear as to what we are using all the land expense funds for. Then on the last page, page 14, this is all technical changes. Okay, any questions on the provisos? Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. I'm probably sure this is going to be changed as they clean up the bill. But is the council meant to be capitalized C or lowercase c for, in reference to the legislative, to us?
I believe in drafting it's supposed to be capitalized, but this is a technical change that they can fix.
Okay, got it. I was just wondering because I know that we don't do it for the ordinances with capital.
Okay.
And so, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, the drafting agency is very good, and so they'll look for all of these little things. Councilmember Wire.
Chair, I had a quick question for Parks Department when it was appropriate.
Yeah, no problem. Parks. And maybe as Director Thielen comes up, you can
explain. Yeah, of course, Chair. And it should be brief. I just wanted to follow up. I know that there was discussions about responding to the play apparatus fire at Wahiawa District Park, and so just wanted to double check on where those funds were going to be coming from for the replacement. Was it this year's operating budget? Was it somewhere in the CIP budget or the upcoming operating budget?
So this is for the park where the play structure was recently destroyed due to arson?
That's correct.
Yeah, as you know, we put our budget requests together back in the fall, and then you folks have been discussing them, and the arson just occurred, so it's not in the budget. We do have each year some funds in our budget to be dealing with play apparatus. I did get notice just the other day, there is a company which is removing and replacing a play structure in another private area. And the play structure would fit in this playground area. Our MSS people have gone out to take a look at it, and they said that the one that's being removed does look like it's in very good condition, so that we would be able to possibly move that as a gift. I want to thank you, Council Member, for raising that. The donor is the company that's doing this. Coincidentally, they are a vendor under our master agreement for the poured-in-place resilient rubber surfaces for the playgrounds. They are the only vendor on that list, and we did double-check that it wouldn't be a conflict of interest for them to be making the donation, which it's not. But they're asking if they could do this fairly rapidly before we can process this as a gift donation, because they just need to be doing the removal and the replacement in one thing as part of their work structure. They have no place to locate it. So while we normally come to the council for approval of gift resolutions before accepting something, we may make a exception in this case to be able to move forward expeditiously. If anybody does have concerns, please let me know or talk with me offline, because this is something that it's not a final determination yet. We're just in consultation with the group, but we might be able to replace it in that manner. The estimated cost for replacing a playground, $210,000 for a new playground equipment and fixing the resilient rubber surface.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'd have to, of course, defer to my colleagues on their position, but would support however you can move forward as quickly as possible to replace it. So appreciate the heads up and would support that. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay. There being none, and having done testimony already, is there any discussion on the proposals for Bill 23? Okay. Seeing none, the chair recommends that Bill 23 of 2025 CD1 be amended to a CD2 that incorporates the changes described during the discussion today and makes any technical and non-substantive amendments that may be necessary. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, the bill has been amended to a CD2. The chair then recommends that Bill 23 of 2025 CD2 be reported out for passage on third reading. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. All right. Members, we're going to keep on going. We are on agenda item number 3. This is Bill 26 of 2025, approving the Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transportation operating budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. we have with us the Executive Director and CEO of HEART, Lori Kahikina. Any comments?
Good afternoon, Chair. For the record, Lori Kahikina, Executive Director and CEO of HEART. I actually have no comments, but just to thank you and your team and the rest of the council members for all of your support. Thank you.
Okay, members, any questions? Okay, hearing none. We'll proceed now with in-person testifiers. There are no registered testifiers on this item. Is there anyone either here in the chambers or online who would like to testify on Bill 26?
Chair, there are none.
There being none? Okay. Members, we are in discussion. Okay, hearing no discussion, the chair recommends Bill 26 of 2025 be reported out for passage on third reading. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Agenda item number 4. This is Bill 27 of 2025, approving the Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transportation capital budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2025 to June 30th of 2026. Again, we have with us the Executive Director and CEO of the Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transportation, Lori Kahikina.
Thank you, Chair. Same, Lori Kahikina for the record, CEO and Executive Director of HEART. Same comment as for the operating budget. We're just very grateful for you folks and all the support you've given us. So thank you.
Members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed with in-person testimony. Clerks, is there anyone standing by here in the chambers to testify on Bill 27?
Chair, there are none.
And then clerks, is there anyone standing by remotely on Bill 27?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, there being none, members, we are in discussion. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, the chair recommends Bill 27 of 2025 be reported out for passage on third reading. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. We are now on Bill 24 of 2025, authorizing the issuance and sale of general obligation bonds and bond anticipation notes of the City and County of Honolulu in a maximum principal amount equal to the aggregate of the amounts appropriated in the capital budget ordinance of said city and county for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026, and specified in said ordinance to be financed from the proceeds of the sale of such bonds and to be expended from the General Improvement Bond Fund, the Highway Improvement Bond Fund, the Solid Waste Improvement Bond Fund, the Housing Development Special Fund, or the Taxable General Improvement Bond Fund. We have with us the Director of Budget and Fiscal Services, Andy Kawano.
Budget Chair Dos Santos Tam, Andy Kawano, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. Just want to thank council members for considering this bill that would authorize myself at BFS, the team, to issue bonds to improve property owned by the city. Thank you.
Members, any questions? I do have a question just for the record. So this involves the General Improvement Bond Fund, Highway Improvement Bond Fund, the Solid Waste Improvement Bond Fund, Housing Development Special Fund, and the Taxable General Improvement Bond Fund. This does not include the sewer fund?
No, we issue bonds separately for the sewer fund and their revenue bonds.
Okay, great, thank you. Members, any questions? Floor Leader Cordero.
Thank you. I was wondering where, if there's, what the reporting requirements to the council are for these bond funds currently?
The requirements for the council for the bond fund?
The reporting to the council.
The current reporting? Well, we're gonna issue a resolution next to let you know how much we are gonna sell, or the up to amount that we wanna sell. So that'll be coming to you. So that'll be council's responsibility to review and approve. You know, when we provide the up to amount through resolution for the various types of GO bonds we issue, it's based on what we think we're gonna achieve during the year and the cash balance we have on hand, because when this administration came on board, there was significant cash rollover from prior administration, and there's still rollover, so we have to consider what we have on hand. So we'll work with council members on that.
Okay, so that would then amend then, so first off, the council will then authorize the principal amount of the bonds that you will be issuing, or?
Yes,
And then-
we're going to propose an up to amount for the
Yes,
different types
correct.
of bonds, GO bonds we're going to issue.
Is there an end of fiscal year reporting, is what I'm asking?
Yes, actually, as we sell bonds, we provide a report on the bonds sold to council members and also provide a status report on debt outstanding.
Okay, so it's not necessary to have it in the bill then itself?
I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you. We'll move on to we'll move on to testimony of all types. Clerks, is there anyone in person or remotely standing by to testify?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, there being none, members, we are in discussion on Bill 24. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, the chair recommends Bill 24 of 2025 be reported out for passage on third reading. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. All right, I'm going to turn this over now to Councilmember Nishimoto to run Bill 21.
Okay, thank you, Chair. All right, members, if you look at the, there's 3 proposed amendments. The first is a $120,000 increase to for IT upgrades. The second is $300,000. That will go to postage for council members to communicate with our communities. And finally, $50,000 for salaries for the Charter Commission.
We have to take testimony too.
Testimony, Natalie Iwasa.
Thank you, Chair. Council Member Nishimoto, Natalie Wasa for the record. Just a couple of comments. First of all, I think there is one more proposed amendment, and maybe it's not being considered, and that's the proviso to use the expense account for, or not use it for the car allowance. I think that would be a goodwill gesture. With respect to the IT upgrades, I'm not sure exactly what that will cover, but I just wanted to mention my experience the other day trying to use the new Hawaii one-use subscription to get the council notices, the agendas, that kind of thing. And it was a little bit frustrating. It was very time-consuming. And in the end, I didn't even know if I had gotten it through because there was no acknowledgement. I was trying to sign up for all of the council agendas, all the committee agendas, and I didn't get any kind of acknowledgement, and I don't think I've actually signed up for it, even though I went through the entire process. So just wanted to let you folks know about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify, please come forward.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of CARES. I'm in strong support of the legislative budget. And so just want to say that I'm very appreciative of all the work from the City Council and the staff and everyone behind the scenes. So without scrutinizing every little thing, I'm just going to say that it seems very appropriate, all the budgeting for all the staff. And then also, one thing I should mention is that an attorney or a few attorneys from the prosecuting attorney's office went to the AG's office. So perhaps prioritizing higher pay for the attorneys who are doing such an amazing job helping the counties fight settlements should get paid more so that we can retain the best attorneys in the county of Honolulu. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify? Okay, see none. Any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, members, any questions? Okay, see none. Members, Chair recommends that Bill 21 be reported out for passage on third reading. Any discussion? Sorry about that. Chair recommends that Bill 21 be amended to a CD1 that incorporates the changes described in the discussion today and makes any technical and non-substantive amendments that may be necessary. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, bill passes.
Yep. Okay, thank you. All right, members, we're going to move on to Resolution 25-75. This is determining the real property tax rates for the city and county of Honolulu for the fiscal year July 1st, 2025 to June 30th of 2026. We have with us the Director of Budget and Fiscal Services, Andy Kawano. This is for rates, real property tax rate resolution.
For the record, Andy Kawano, Director of Budget and Fiscal Services. I have no comment on the bill. The rates have not changed from last year.
Okay, thank you. We'll now go to testimony. We have one registered testifier, Natalie Owasa, for Resolution 25-75. And if anyone else would like to testify here in the chambers, please line up behind her. Natalie, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Natalie Wassa for the record. I oppose this. You know, some of you have made a really big deal about the potential increases for the sewer fund, 100 to 115%. But if you look at the past 10 years for residential A, a lot of those homes have had way over 100% increase. And I can't stress enough that when that happens, the rent goes up. So, you know, the message I'm getting is if you're a homeowner who lives in your own home, you're golden. The mayor's got your back, but the city council hasn't done really very much. I know that there were a couple members who did propose certain amendments to that classification, but nothing has been done over 10 years. And you keep putting these high rates on landlords, rent is going to go even higher. So in my own home, for example, my landlord pays 64% more than I would if I owned that home, 64%. So I just ask you to do something about that. I'm just really concerned about those rates. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any questions?
Chair?
Yes, Councilmember Tupola.
Yeah, thank you, Natalie, for being here. I just wanted to say that I do agree with you. I feel like I've even tried to put forward proposals. One was called Truth in Taxation, to try to keep the amount that we're collecting for property taxes stagnant, meaning that if we have valuations, that we bring down the tax rate so that we're always collecting the same, which is actually good for budgeting. But, you know, got a lot of pushback on it. I know various members in this body have suggested different things, but I couldn't agree with you more that that is actually way more of an increase. And, you know, I know it's different than the sewer fee increase, but nonetheless, having those kind of valuation jumps has really hurt our residents. So I am hoping that we take things out of permitted interaction group and move some bills substantially forward. I'm not totally over it, but I think, well, I personally won't stop suggesting them. So thank you very much for bringing that up. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Any other testifiers on the real property tax rate resolution?
Aloha, Angela Melody Young, testifying, wishing to comment. So I think this is a good resolution because it comes at a good time with the state legislative season closing up. And there were a bunch of discussions about the county's proposals to help with HHFDC's development plans, and as well as for the state to consider the real property tax rates that the counties are implementing. So I think with the discussion about the empty homes tax, with the new consideration for the real property tax classification E, the category E, it's a really good moment to talk about these fun ideas that are going to help real estate markets and as well as providing homes for the people of Hawaii.
Okay, thank you, members. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Clerks, is there anyone else standing by to testify either here in the chambers or remotely?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, there being none, members, we are in discussion on this. Vice Chair Wire.
Hey, Chair, quick question for Director Quano. Did he step out?
Oh, I see him maybe coming back through the windows.
Okay. And if not, I'll go ahead and pass it over to the other members for discussion or defer to you.
Any other discussion? Councilmember Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. Just really quickly stating, I filed the Council Communications 112 relating to Resolution 25-75.
Thank you. Further discussion on this? Okay, for my part as budget chair, I will note I appreciated the comments from Ms. Wassa about residential A. I note that there's two types of property taxes where we have tiers. It's residential A and the transient vacation rentals, and we've created a structure where a certain tax rate kicks in at a certain valuation. That's certainly something that I'd like to examine as well, especially given the increases in residential property values in all across the categories, but it particularly affects these. I understand that there likely will be a permitted interaction group at some point soon to look at some of these things, and so I look forward to examining this further. And to Councilmember Tupola's point, it is my hope that whatever comes out of the permitted interaction group gets translated into action, or at least some robust discussion, so it's not just another study that goes onto a shelf. So with that, is there any further discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, the chair recommends that Resolution 25-75 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Members, before we adjourn, I will note that Bill 21, just for clarity, was amended to a CD1 that incorporated the changes described during discussion today and made any technical non-substantive amendments, and then that Bill 21, 2025 CD1 was the version that was reported out for passage on third reading, and we'll pick it up on June 4th at full council. Is that all? Okay. There being no further business, the meeting is adjourned. It's 1:19. Thanks, everyone.